Oh, I have the thumbs up. All right. So good evening and welcome to tonight's council meeting. At this moment, I would like to yield over the podium to Councilwoman Hannah Nager for the invocation, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Even if you're home, if you could please rise if you're able, it would be appreciated. And once you hear the finalizing of the prayer, give us a minute so we could get the flag up online, and then we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Nager, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to see that you're looking healthier than ever. Tonight, we have a man who just has a slightly busy schedule. Tonight, we have S.J. Hazim providing us with our invocation. He is the co-founder of Plaid Astra and the president and co-founder of the nonprofit Top Tier. Some of the other things that SJ is involved with: he volunteers on multiple boards and communities, including Topeka United and the 2021 Visit Topeka Board Nominating Committee. He was also on the committee that drafted the Diversity and Inclusion Statement for Visit Topeka. He was a member on the Momentum 2022 Community Engagement and Pride Workshop. He is a CENT board member, Police Athletic League board member, Darting Youth Academy Foundation board member, and a Strengthening Police and Community Partnerships Committee member. SJ's living mission statement is to impact his community and the world with innovative approaches to assist with existing problems. And it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to him now. Thank you, Mr. Hazim.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So I'll just get right into it. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today to request wisdom and guidance in one of the most challenging times in our community's history. Just a few years back, Topekans were gathered together, striving towards common goals to move this city forward, all under the rally cry of momentum. And now, for many, it can feel as if in some ways the brakes have ground us down to a screeching halt. God, sometimes the harder things get, the harder it can feel each day to choose love and patience over hate and pride. And everyone here knows right now, things are hard, and the loads our hearts are carrying are heavy. For all those here who feel the weight of our times crushing down, I pray, Lord, that you give our hearts strength, that instead of asking for a lighter load, that you make us stronger both now and for whatever your future may hold for us. Lord, give us the strength to close the social distance that has been created between us, both by COVID and by our own devices. Please grant us the humility to put people before a party, no matter how difficult the issue is at hand. Please walk with us as we gain our momentum back and be by our sides as we build bridges that help heal the rifts between us and our neighbors. Bridges that lead us forward hand in hand to a better and brighter future for Topeka and beyond, so we can truly be a Topeka United. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen. We'll wait for the flag to be presented. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we now move on to the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla.
Here.
Council members Hiller,
Here.
Valdivia Acaba, Ortiz,
Here, thank you.
Emerson,
Here.
Padilla,
Here.
Nager,
Here.
Dobler,
Here.
Duncan,
Here.
and Lesser.
Here.
This is Christina Valdivia Alcalon. I'm answering for myself, and I am here.
We have 10 present.
All right, and now we move on to presentations. I will yield the floor to Councilman Padilla, Deputy Mayor Padilla,
No.
the census man.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mayor.
I appreciate it. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge some people who really stepped up and gave me a hand when we were working with the census and trying to get the word out, trying to coordinate all the efforts between a number of organizations. It's something that really was a team effort, and including the organizations, the city manager himself and other staff were quick to respond to anything I asked them to do. They came up with great ideas. They implemented things. They were thinking faster than I could think and were doing faster than I could do. So everything really went well, and it's all thanks to their efforts. And I want to show my appreciation. And I have asked the city manager, and the mayor has authorized us to present to the following staff a recognition, a small recognition of the appreciation of their work. And so if I could name those people now, I hope some of them are online. It's kind of hard to see everybody here, but I think it's worthy of public acknowledgement of their work and effort. I want to thank Trey Hikus. He was kind of the guy who, he was the guy that coordinated all the meetings, set a lot of the agendas, would check with me, make sure that all the topics were covered, coordinated a lot of communication. So Trey was very, very important to this effort. And so I thank him for that. Monique Glade, I can't tell you, I kind of have to stand back when I get around Monique because that whirlwind of energy that comes with her whenever you ask her to do something. She just takes with it. And if you're smart, you get out of the way and don't interrupt her while she's trying to get things done. And so Monique was extremely important to us. And again, she coordinated a lot of stuff with other people. And that was key to the success that we enjoyed. Rochelle Vega Rentana, she stepped up, and along with the others, with Monique and Trey, was quick to acknowledge a need if we saw it and step up and address it, offer her assistance, and worked really great as part of our team. Molly Hadfield, I really appreciated how she put together all the local media that we utilize, the PSAs, the public service announcements. She reached out to a list of people that I provided and others who stepped forward and volunteered to do the PSAs, including a couple former mayors. They quickly jumped in, and Molly was extremely flexible in her schedule, set everything up, helped write some of the script, and did a great job. I really enjoyed putting those out in the media. I was proud of that work because I think it shows what the City of Topeka staff can produce when they're working together. Taylor Shealy, she's here again tonight. I tell you, she is the little glue that holds everything together on all our video efforts, and she just keeps in step with everybody and doesn't miss a beat. So Taylor was extremely important. And then of course, our own city manager, Mr. Trout. Brent was very helpful. He provided, again, like I said, the staff. If there was an issue that we were bumping along with and needed a little push, city manager stepped in and was always there whenever I inquired for help or asked him for ideas, and made available his network of contacts so that we can continue to grow that effort for the city of Topeka and the state of Kansas in our census. So I would like to thank them publicly. And Mayor, I think that maybe you can tell them, those people who I've just mentioned, how we're going to show our recognition for their effort. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Mike, I would be remiss if I don't say, when you look for good leaders to make things happen, you think of attributes such as humility, kindness, ability to connect. You look for people who are not scared of taking on big challenges. And I tell you, Deputy Mayor, there is no greater honor than to say that you took the lead for our community with the census. There were so many challenges. We had moving deadlines. First, they told us they were going to change the date. Then they said that they were going to push it back. Then it was just like, no, it's still going to wrap up early. And you worked so hard. So I know that you're crediting everybody, and I appreciate them as well. But as a leader, you helped put this coalition of people together. So thank you to all of them for their sacrifices, because I know that this is part of the stuff that falls under other duties as assigned. And a lot of them just with a cheerful heart, because that's just who they are. They just volunteered and worked with us to make sure that our efforts were successful. So to discuss what they're going to receive, when I became mayor, I had the privilege of ordering a city coin. There were only 50 of these made for the whole 4 years that I've been in office. And if you look at the screen of city manager, he is showing that coin out so that you could see it. The coin is extremely special. It has a picture of the Welcome to Topeka banner that was painted and depicted by one of our local Topeka artists, Becky Drager. She is phenomenal. And if you ever want to see some beautiful Topeka renderings, Becky Drager has several of them. And in the back, it has the seal of the city of Topeka. The tradition of the challenge coin, which is what that is that challenge coins were a military tradition in which if a soldier was found doing something exceptional above and beyond the call of duty, the supervising officer would present that challenge coin, and they are very sought after. I have one of being the honorary commander at the 190th. So military tradition is something that I really honor. So for us having these coins, it's a small token, but it means a lot. And just remember, there were only 50 made for these last 4 years. I ordered them when I started, and none of them have been ordered again. So if you have one of these, you have one of 50. And that tells you how much we appreciate all of the work that you've done on behalf of our community. Anything else that you would like to add, Mike? Or Brent, of your staff?
Again, it's hard to tell you how good I felt knowing that I had that staff available to me. And I felt strong that we were really doing a good job. And it goes again to what I've said more and more about people underestimating the city staff. When they're asked to step up, they step up. And they did a wonderful job, and I'm so appreciative for their work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We now move on to the consent agenda, if the clerk would read. Oh, city manager, that's true. City manager wanted to say a few words. I invited you, and then I took it away from you.
Right, and so, I mean, there's really, in the scheme of things, one of the most important things we do is conduct the census every 10 years. And it's vital for our community. So much is tied to our numbers that we have, both the pride issue and money that goes along with that. So very appreciative of all the work that we were able to get done. I think we came away with a very good count. And so very hopeful that our number is going to turn out very good at the end of the day. Kind of as a follow-up to the census, we invited tonight Jason Dean. He is the partnership specialist for Kansas with the U.S. Census Bureau, and he's going to give us a presentation tonight regarding the census, kind of as a wrap-up for that time frame. So, Jason.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And if I'm able to share my screen here, I will do that. Okay. So again, that's such a neat idea, Mayor. That was so neat to have the coins made. I'm just tickled. I haven't heard that before, so I want to do that now for something. So I really appreciate the effort you all, the city council, the members of the community put in to get the word out about the census. It's so important, and our messaging right now is to remind people that the census lives on. And although the decennial, the once a decade census has ended and you're getting results later on this year, there's still a lot of surveys that a lot of grants, a lot of decisions from nonprofits and private sector is being made upon. And so when someone gets a survey, someone in Topeka will probably get one this week. And they need to know that they still need to respond to get that vital information back to the community to know how to address the needs of the people. So today I was going to go real briefly to look at our data and how to find it. And I'll be giving more in-depth presentations. So I'll leave my information in the chat after I'm done here. So if you want a more, usually these are about an hour long. They're called Census Data 101 sessions. And if you're a grant writer or you just have an interest, or you, there could be a lot of reasons why you want to look into our data, and maybe you're just a new or novice user. That's what I'll be doing all throughout the spring and into the summer. Most of them are virtual, but hey, there's a few that want to do in person, so we'll do that safely as well. Just let me know. So basically, from our census.gov homepage, you can go and a couple of different routes to explore our data. One real easy route is called Quick Facts, and this is going to give you some more general data points that a lot of people are going to be looking into. And it just starts off with the United States, and then you can put in your county or your city to compare what's going on in your community to the United States. You can also add in the state and get data for the state. And this gives you a nice quick look to compare what's going on in Kansas versus Topeka, for instance, versus the United States. So if you want to look at, hey, I want to know the average price for a house, or the commute to work, or something about health or education, the economy, this is where you can look and do that comparison. And there's quite a, even though it's a general look, there's a good deal of information just on this Quick Facts page to compare. Also, you can go and look at what's called, I'm gonna go this way, back to our main page, and look at data.census.gov. Used to be called Fact Finder. I think our new platform, if you will, is a little more user-friendly. From our census.gov webpage, you go Explore Data and Explore Data Main. And so we just looked at Quick Facts. This is a little, I call it slow facts, but it's just, if you're really wanting to do a deeper dive into our data, this is where you'd want to go. And you can either, you could just type in something here, for instance, a city or a county, or you could go directly to advanced search. And you'd pick a topic, say housing. And then I'd say start from the top down if you don't know specifically maybe what you're looking for. We're just going to say housing will give us all the data on housing that we collect. And now this isn't decennial data for 2020 yet, but it comes from our surveys, which again, you'll see real quick why our surveys is so important. When you're looking at the American Community Survey is our main one that we collect rich, detailed data on. And then you pick a geography. And again, if you want something specific, because Topeka is a good sized city, so it's not just like I picked Topeka and things are good. You might want a census tract within Topeka that's kind of more at the neighborhood level to understand what's going on in Southwest Topeka or Northeast Topeka. So there's different ways to go about searching different geographic levels. So I just picked Tracts, and it's going to ask you, within what state, and then what county you're in to do that. And then it'll give you all the counties in the state, and your guys are in Shawnee, I was assuming. If not, you pick where you want to go there. And then it's going to list all the census tracts within the county. And then it'll give you a long, detailed data points. Again, we picked housing in this case. Everything we collect essentially on housing within the census tracts. So I'm just going to pick one, and then I'm going to search for that specific census tract. And I got a few minutes. I will give you a brief overview of census tracts. Some might not be familiar with that. Again, this will tell you the most recent data is usually what it's going to pull up automatically unless you say otherwise. And you can see from the data.census.gov part and just housing, and there's a long list of data points we select. You got your margin of error, so be cognizant of that, because sometimes in smaller areas it can be a little bigger, and it might not be as accurate because you're talking about a larger margin of error. So be aware of that. And so anyway, that's another example of doing a deeper dive into anything you really want to look at, housing, healthcare, education, and so forth. There's also what we call Tiger Web. And again, this you can just go to the census.gov website and type in Tiger Web, and it'll bring you to this landing page. And I just click on the top one, unless you're doing research for past censuses like 2010, or you want the most current data because your census tracts change. And you can just zoom in. It starts off with the United States, and you can just zoom in to your county. And I pick transportation. You can see over on the left here, and your census tracts and places. Okay, so that's all incorporated places. And you'll see there's also, there's also some CDPs, as they're called. So they're not incorporated places, but people from that community know about them. So we include those as well. And you just look at this real quick, you can see all the different census tracts within Topeka and say, hey, I want to know about census tract 19, this part of the city. And that's how you can go back into data.census.gov and find that tract and learn about that census tract. So that's a very quick overview. Again, I said usually I do an hour and a half presentation, but I wanted to give you a little taste of what we do and how some different methods to find your data that you're looking for. I'm going to send you the PowerPoint. I'll send it to the Brent Trout, I believe, and he can get that out to you. And please let me know. Again, I'll leave my information in the chat box if you have any further questions or you want to set up a more detailed meeting for your group. And with that, I will stop. Any questions at the moment?
Jason, first, I want to say thank you for that introduction to the site. As a person that used to write grants, a lot of times you're looking for demographic information on your community, and I know that the census website is always a trusty place to figure out things. Any other questions that we have for Mr. Dean? Or comments for our team? Okay, Mr. Dean, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for your work. Brent, as well, for you, because your staff put a lot of effort into the census this year. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Mr. Dean.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so now we do move on into the consent. We have applause by Councilwoman Hiller. So we now move on into the consent agenda, if the clerk could read.
Item 3A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout allowing and approving city expenditures for the period November 28, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, and enumerating said expenditures therein. Item 3B are the minutes of the special meeting of February 6th, 2021, and the regular meeting of February 9th, 2021, and there are no applications.
We have heard the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the governing body?
Move approval.
We have a motion for approval by Councilman Dobler. We have a second by Councilwoman Ortiz. Do we have any comments or questions with regards to the consent agenda? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Councilmember Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes. Gotta hit the right button. Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala, Valdivia Alcala,
Councilwoman, do you hear us?
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we just asked if you would vote yes or no with regards to the consent agenda.
I voted yes, resounding yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
and Nager.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Now I have to hit mute. So thank you very much. We now move on to the action items. We move on to action item A, if the clerk would read.
Item 4A is a resolution introduced by City Manager Brent Trout temporarily suspending certain governing body rules and procedures in response to the COVID-19 pandemic until May 5th, 2021.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We still need to continue the suspension of the rules in order for us to be able to continue to meet virtually and vote virtually. And so with that, that's brought before you. I do intend to move to a hybrid meeting situation as we had in the past, based on where we're at right now with COVID and the transmission scorecard. I believe that we can do that, which will give greater ability for the public to be able to join us in person and make public comment. Obviously, that we'll adjust that if for some reason things change with the direction that we're headed with COVID in our community. There was one change that was suggested, and there was a amended document sent around related to allowing people to participate in the meeting, even if, be present on the Zoom. And so that was sent to you as a potential amendment to what we had originally proposed. Councilwoman Hiller brought that forward, and staff has worked with her to get the language we believe is workable for that. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Questions for City Manager with regards to the extension of this? I know that all of us are tired of meeting online. And I, for one, am dying to be able to sit alongside all of you, but we still are waiting for people to get vaccinated so that we can all be safe. If there's other questions or comments, Councilman Duncan.
Just a clarification, City Manager, when you talk about, are you talking about trying to go back to a hybrid model the first meeting of March, or are you talking about after March?
So first meeting in March 2nd. We have 2 more weeks. We'll get this week's scorecard and next week's, and everything looks good. Then staff will be in the council chambers, and then any governing body members that would want to participate there in person would be able to, or you would be able to participate on online Zoom if that was your preference. And then same goes for public comment. It would either be able to be done in person or virtually as well.
Just one follow-up. Do we know what are, under the current rules, or what would be the capacity in the chamber?
I know I have to go back and look, but I think it's well over, I think it was 3 raised
It's
to
three,
300.
it's 300 or 50%, whichever is lower, but that is based on your availability to social distance. The maximum amount of individuals in a room, in a group, if not able to social distance, remains 10. So the maximum that we could do is 10 individuals bunched up. If they feel comfortable, or a family, separate them 6 foot, which really minimizes the number that we would have available in the chambers.
Yeah, I believe we had, back when we were doing the social distancing, we had 18 seats, I believe, that were available in the audience.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller, I see that you've unmuted.
Yes, when you're ready, I would be follow your guidance on how to get the amendment in. If you want a motion to approve and then a motion to add the amendment, I'm happy to do that with procedural guidance.
Okay, so then we would make, would you introduce a motion to approve so that then we can amend?
Absolutely. I move that we approve the ordinance as, if I can add the amendment in, I will, but I can just do the ordinance. So.
Well, I think that we first need to do the ordinance,
Okay.
and then after doing the ordinance, then we start submitting amendments.
Okay.
And then we approve as amended.
Okay. I move that we approve the ordinance as presented for the agenda.
Okay, so do we have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Nager? And then now we have Councilwoman Hiller for comments.
I move that the amendments that would allow the public the same opportunities that the staff and the council members have to attend and or speak be added, be amended into this ordinance.
We have a motion to amend. We have a second by Councilwoman Ortiz. Do we have any other questions or comments?
If I can explain, just so it's clear,
Yes, ma'am.
sometimes, as we know, people come to the council meeting to show support or interest in an item, but they don't necessarily want to speak. So this amendment would allow them to call and sign up either to be present for an item or to speak. It would also then allow our public hearings to pretty much be back at normal, where you don't have to sign up in advance, but if you are present, you're given the opportunity at the time of the meeting to speak. So we're hopeful that we'll see, but this is the public. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Additional questions or comments with regards to the motion at hand, now with the amendment to allow individuals to participate in the meeting or via Zoom just to demonstrate support? Seeing none, we proceed by voting for the motion as amended.
I think we have to.
This is the amendment, Mayor, I believe.
Oh yeah, we have to vote on the amendment first. Thank you. So we would vote for the amendment.
Council members Duncan,
Now we're rotating. Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
We have 10 yes. Motion carries.
We move on to item 2, if the clerk would read.
Mayor.
We now have to approve the amended document. Like my brain is like forward thinking. I have the agenda right in front of me, so forgive me, guys. We now would, if there is no other questions with regards to now the amended document, we would approve the document as amended.
Councilmember Lesser, Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Vogler,
Yes.
and Duncan.
Yes.
I think Lesser is back.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 10 yes, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Guys, forgive me. It's the first week that I have energy, and I think that my brain is not able to keep up with the bounce back of energy that I'm feeling, so bear with me. I think we now formally move on to item B of the agenda, if the clerk would read.
Item 4B is approval of the 2019 Consolidated Action Plan Amendment Number 2.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The Consolidated Action Plan amendment was discussed at the last meeting. Primarily, the amendment takes additional money we were provided by HUD through the CDBG program to be able to provide additional assistance to small business. And so we would ask for approval of that amendment to our Consolidated Action Plan for 2019.
Questions for our team? If there's no questions for the city manager, is there a pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Nager moves for approval. Do we have a second? Councilman Emerson moves for seconds the motion. Do we have additional comments or questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment as this moves that how much I appreciated, and I think the public appreciated when the staff published lists of all the different assistance possibilities were out there. It's been hard when there have been times when things were sort of siloed, and so I just wanted to comment now that I really appreciated that, and that I hope we will continue to do that, making master lists of all the different assistance programs that are available at any given time. My understanding is the staff has done a good job of referring back and forth to kind of screen what people need and get them to other programs if those are more appropriate or are additionally available. And last, we all know that JADO is looking at another program as well. And I do hope that we will sit in on that staff, as well as the city manager will sit in with that group as they plan, and likewise invite their participation like we did before, so that we do the best that we can. So thank you for all of that work, and look forward to the next round. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Additional comments or questions? At this juncture, we do have a motion and a second. If you don't have any other questions at this point in time, we would proceed by voting.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Vogler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Lesser.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. We move on to item C, if the clerk would read.
Item 4C is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout concerning the adoption of the 2015 International Existing Building Code by creating Chapter 14.85 TMC, omitting Section 2.235.010 and repealing Chapter 14.25 TMC. The approval will adopt the 2015 International Existing Building Code.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in December of 2020, staff brought this forward as a discussion item. We looked at the possibility of getting this considered discussion that occurred at the governing body meeting included a desire to have us go back and look at additional stakeholder input, visiting with the Landmarks Commission, and also taking a look at answering the question regarding whether this was the appropriate years code to consider going forward. Since then, Richard Faulkner has met with a variety of groups, and I see Richard's on here and Bill, and I'm not sure which one you want to talk about those discussions that you had and any additional input to give to the governing body.
Yeah, I can start. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. As you mentioned, Richard was able to meet with Landmarks Commission and review this in a little more detail. That was met with favorable response. There was a question about accessibility, and I think that's noted in the memo we have in your packet. Suffice to say, all was good, and because they realize this is a new code, the one that we're replacing is 23 years out of date, if you will. So all good with the design professionals on the Landmarks Commission to advance repurposing of existing buildings. And then the other part of this was just, again, trying to determine what the best appropriate year would be. And as mentioned in the memo, we've put in, about a year and a half of work to tailor this to the community, to Topeka, and those tend to take a little longer than other communities where they use it off the shelf. So we did start that, completed it. If we were to go back, that would set us back probably another year to get a newer version. And it doesn't really have a much difference when it comes to other cities. We want to be up to date, not too out of date, but we also we're proceeding on adopting a family of codes in the same year. And we started that with this one, started it with the Energy Conservation Code. The next code we will need to begin at probably 2021. So this was the last of the 2015s we were working on, and would recommend to continue down that path. And we'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Bill or Brent? Councilwoman Nair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When would we revisit this? You were talking about how we had used the 1997 code up until this point, and that being 23 years and now out of date. When would we reassess what building code standards we wanted to maintain?
I would, as Richard has mentioned in the past, we update these every 6 to 9 years. We'll try to do 6. We've got a number of codes. So once we start the work, I would say the next time we would revisit this particular code would be a 2021 or a 2024 version. So it would be more than likely in that time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Duncan, to be followed by Councilwoman Ortiz.
Okay, with respect, I did not understand that answer. You said it would be 6 to 8 years, but you'd start in 2021?
Every 6, Councilman Duncan.
Yeah.
Every 6 years, 6 to 9 years is when the reviews are scheduled. So the first schedule for this particular code would be starting after 2021. So we're looking at 2024 more than likely is when that code would be reviewed again.
Okay, so I will just comment. One of the questions that I and several asked last time was how different we thought the 15 and 18 code was. The comment at that time to us was certainly some differences, but didn't think it was too drastic. That's something that could be compared. I don't know if that comparison happened or not. I will just say, from my perspective, it seems short-sighted, even if it took a year, which I would argue might not take a year to do that. Why we wouldn't just do that, get it as updated as possible, especially if it's another 6 years or even 3 years, and keep that clock moving. So to be honest, I may vote no on this evening for that reason. I just wish we had gotten the more updated. So that's all. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
Yes, Duncan kind of stole my question there, but that's okay. He looks nice in his tie there, haircut. But I guess I just don't understand what takes so long to bring this up to, to bring this up to the year that we're at. I was always told we always operated a year or two behind.
Councilwoman Ortiz, I'll try to answer that. And Richard, if you want to jump in, feel free to. I don't know off the top of my head the number of codes that we actually have. I'm thinking it's 9, 10 in that category. So what we do is different from other cities is what we try and tailor this to the community. When we meet with contractors and in this case, the Building and Fire Appeals Board, we exempt a lot of things out, or we make modifications that fit the way we do business in Topeka to help our businesses and our contractors. And so that does take some time, meeting and reviewing the code. And so to fit all of those codes into a nice, we try to do in theory, you would do one a year. This particular one was just so out of date from 1997 for various reasons. We finally got to it, and this one took a little longer than the normal year review, just because this was a brand new version. The 1997 version, I think, is a uniform code. This is an international building code. So this is really probably a completely different animal that had to be reviewed. So in this case, that's why this took a little longer than the normal review would. We also ran into some issues last year, as you know, with meeting. And then we are down on staff. We do not have our plan reviewers positions filled. That takes away from staff time to help with the reviews because we're doing the daily work. So this is it's an ongoing process. And you're right, as was mentioned, as we get to them, we try and do the latest code. When we started this, probably, and Richard can verify, but this probably was started soon after 2018. And we were moving forward on 2015 adoptions. So we stuck with 2015. The next versions we would do would be as up to date as possible. In this case, would be 2021s. They come out every 3 years. And so we do whatever that latest version is, we try and stick to that family of codes for that year.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Emerson, be followed by Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I join my colleagues. Frankly, I just can't believe this takes 2.5 years to do a review. And I think if anything we've learned in the last few days that it tends to be these building codes get more stringent, especially with energy conservation. And I think we've learned in the last couple of days that energy conservation is going to be paramount going forward. So I'm sure the 2018 code is a little more stringent as far as what it'll, what it requires as far as insulation and other efficiencies. So frankly, if 2015 is our only choice tonight, I'm going to be voting no. I would wholeheartedly adopt the 2018. And furthermore, I just say that then puts us in line with what I consider our peer cities around here: Manhattan, Lawrence, Olathe, Leavenworth. And I guess I just argue that those cities don't have any issues with, we talk about tailoring a building code to us. I would say, in particular, you look at Lawrence and they don't seem to have any problems with development over there. So I just, frankly, I think, when we see somebody doing something well, we should maybe, I think it's okay to, imitate them or use what they do. I personally think we do some things better than Lawrence, but I think they've had, more development. And so anything we can do to accelerate that here, I'm all for. Thanks.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Sort of along those lines, I'm a little more comfortable with the choice of the code year, but it's very important to me that, especially after we put the work into customizing our codes here, that we put them in one place so somebody can read them, whether it's a contractor or whether, in particularly in the case of a rehab code, that somebody who's considering remodeling an older home can go in one place and find out what the code is. And with that, then, when we talked about the property maintenance code a year or so ago, we included in our adoption that it would be online as well as a paper copy in the clerk's office. So I wanted to double check. At first, the staff said, oh, I don't know if we can do that, but a check with the ICC, it wasn't a problem. And so we were able to get an online copy and customize it with our amendments and put it online. Is there any reason that we could not do that with this code that staff is aware of? No?
I think once, no, to answer your question, I don't think there's a reason. I think once it's adopted, then we can work on either providing that link through them or through our own page.
If I may, Mayor, it needs to be more than a link in that we should have our amendments in that copy.
Yes.
So that you just have to go one place and read one code. When the time is right, I think for us to put the kind of the footprints for continuing to do this, I would like to add just a few words to line 87 in the proposed document to put the online posting included in there. Thank you.
Sure.
You're muted.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Fyander, if we did not accept this tonight and the instruction was to present a more up-to-date year, 2018 or 2021, you indicate it would take a year to get that done. Is that correct?
I did at this point.
Okay. And in that year's time, we would be relegated to using the 1997 code, which is 22, 23, 24 years out of date. Is that right?
That's correct.
The 2015 is ready to go. What would prevent us from adopting the 2015 tonight and then immediately starting on the process to adopt either the 2018, I would suggest perhaps the 2021 instead of waiting 6 years or 15 years or whatever, just get her done next year.
Yeah, Councilman Dobler, that was our recommendation, is that the next codes that we would bring back to you would be 2021. There is a caveat to that. We've been working on the Energy Conservation Code, a very important code that was started using the 2015. So that's the next in line, and we would want to get that before you first before we worked on any other updates, and we would just have to get some understanding as to what you would expect when we brought that back to you, because we've put a lot of work into that one. So But yeah, you're correct. We would be able to begin going through our Rolodex of updates, and we would start with 2021 actually the next time we would do that.
Councilwoman Nager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I very much like what Councilman Dobler has presented. Thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala?
Thank you, Mayor. Just going back a little bit, buckling up with Tony's question about the length of time. Is this because we are short of staff? Has this continually been a problem with updating code books? Are people volunteer to do it on staff and give only so much time out of it? And who ultimately controls the oversight to make sure that this is done? I don't think we can call it a timely fashion because obviously it's not, but who has the ultimate oversight to making sure it gets done?
Richard, do you want to talk through that process?
When we go through the code books, I don't know how familiar you are with the code book, but it's like 300 pages at least. Any code book, plumbing code, mechanical code, building code. The members that we have, they volunteer their time, and we meet once a month. And we have a mixture of people on the board. We have engineers, contractors, developers, and so everybody has their opinion. So when certain issues come up, we have to work through those issues. And this document is not a small document. So it takes time to work out those issues and to go through that whole document, which is there are 300 plus pages in each one of those documents. So it does take time because the people that are doing it, like I said, we meet once a month, and there are always varying opinions on certain issues, and we have to hammer them out. And sometimes we do have to make amendments to the regulations. So it does take a little time. As Bill had mentioned, some communities, Lawrence being one of them, they just take the regulation, they adopt it as it comes out. We don't think that's a good way to do it for our community. I guess we could change that, but we try to make it and tailor it and make it so that everybody understands what we're moving forward on. As far as going and starting on a new code, I know you guys aren't aware of this, but we're right now, we still have the 2009 residential code is the next code book we have to go through. And that's almost 1,000-page document. So, and we're going to have developers and contractors and architects on that same board we use. And as I said, there's always some issues that come up. You know, the developers are looking at the bottom line, the engineers are looking at safety, which I think is a good thing, but those things have to be worked out. And so, like I said, we were looking at the 2009 residential code is something we really do have to get updated. And the same board we use to update this code is going to be that board. So for us to if we start on the existing code 2018, that's going to put us further back on the 2009 residential code that is 2009. We're in 2019, and we're going to go to the 2015. So those are the things, the issues that we look at when we're doing a upgrade to the code.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, your questions are still out there for the most part, right?
Yeah, like who's ultimately responsible for making sure it all gets done? And
sorry. Well, that's the development services, and ultimately is me. But the board, we have a liaison. Our main plans examiners works with that board to get them the meetings going. But ultimately, the responsibility overseeing them and getting the process done is my responsibility.
I think that answers them all.
Thank you. Councilman
Because you're
Duncan.
saying that
Oh.
it's not staff, it's the commission members that do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Duncan?
I just have one question and I guess one comment. My question would be, as we talked about this in December, having you take a look at the 18, so we've talked about then, now I know 21's come up. You say you took some of those issues we talked about back to that group. What was their reaction and comments and thought about our request of doing that?
They were concerned about They were concerned about the time they'd already put in this code and it not being adopted. So they were concerned about that. But there was no adopting an earlier or a newer code. That was not an issue. It was just that they felt like this code would work, and this is the one that we have now. And in the future, as Bill mentioned, we're going to try and make sure that we have the same family of codes that we're using.
Okay, and then my comment would just be, I fully get that asking for a year of work is not as simple as it sounds. I'm very aware of the weight of that, the staffing issues. I'm still stuck in the conundrum of a year of work, if we even got us to 21, saves us 6 years beyond that of work of having to deal with this issue, which seems more productive than eventually having to deal with it again in a few years. Now, that's just my perspective, and this is not my industry, so it's easy for someone who's not in that world to say that, perhaps. And I just want to comment on Councilman Dobler's suggestion, which I don't disagree with. My problem is, from my perspective, it doesn't solve my concerns because there's nothing in this that guarantees that work will be to us by a certain date. So we can pass it and say we're going to work on it, but a year from now we may be saying, hey, are we working on that? Unless there's something there that provides that it comes back to us. So that would be my only concern there, but I understand the sentiment there. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Councilman Dobler.
Yeah, I guess I'm going back to a comment that Mr. Fyander made about the City of Lawrence adopts this. I don't know who said it, but the City of Lawrence just adopts the codes without a lot of adjustment to them. What is so different about our development in our community compared to Lawrence or Olathe? I mean, a couple of older communities that makes it so we have to go back and completely go through the entire thing and rewrite half of it to satisfy everybody here.
Well, it's my understanding that before we adopt a code, we reach out to the stakeholders and make sure they are part of what we're doing instead of just taking something and handing it to them. So that's my understanding of our process. So that's what we do.
So the City of Lawrence does not reach out to their developers before they pass a code?
I don't know that, but I do know that they don't go through a process as we go through, the looking at the code before we send it out to the stakeholders and adopt it. I know they don't do that. I don't know how they do that, but I do know that they just take the code and.
I guess I understand what you're saying, and I understand the process and appreciate the process. I guess at some point you've got to ask the question, do we continue to do something just because we've always done it that way? Or is somebody asking the question, should we be, for the most part, adopting these codes the way they are? So maybe that's the root question that we need to get answered. Sounds like it would save a lot of time if we could head down that road.
If I may, Councilman Dobler, I would say that as a great question that we would ask our stakeholders that are the end users and at these codes impact the most. I'm not sure, Richard, if we've ever posed that question back to the folks we work with, but that would be one way of coming back to you with some responses. I suspect it's partly, this is the process we've set up over the years. It's also partly my understanding is that was something that the stakeholders also desire. So if there is a desire to go a different way, I would we're open to that. We would definitely want to hear from those impacted.
Councilman Emerson, to be followed by Councilwoman Ortiz.
Sure, yeah. And Mr. Faulkner, Mr. Finder, I know this all predates you guys doing this, so please don't take this as an attack on you guys, because I know this is the way it's been done for years and years. But part of the problem is for whatever reason, Topeka seems to be this island of special things amidst, everywhere else. So something you do in every other city, first-class city, you come to Topeka and it's different. And I'll give you an example that isn't building specific here. We probably know that North Kansas Avenue job has been delayed, right? Because they're waiting for some valves. And you ask, well, 12-inch valves, how hard can that be to get? And then Topeka valves open opposite of every other city around except for one other. And so therefore, they're harder to get. And it's things like that just have they add up to making development and building in Topeka, frankly, harder and take longer. So as Councilman Dober said, I'd also be in favor of, why don't we standardize, on like the other cities do, to the extent they do as well, because I think it would really pay a huge dividends. It's too late for us now to go back and change our water valves to into open left like everyone else is. But going forward, I would sure hope that we could just try to things level the playing field so Topeka is as easy to develop and build in as every other city. And again, in closing, I know that this isn't something that you guys invented, or this is the process that's been around here for a long time, but hopefully it's something that we can change going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The city manager.
Thank you. I've been listening, obviously, to your conversation and your suggestions. And I think one of the things that I would suggest is that this 2015 code is a big improvement over what we have. Now, I request that you seriously consider approving it. I think that it is an issue, as was stated, there's a lot of time that's been invested by a lot of people to get it at this point. I understand the desire to move it forward to the 2-3 years or even 6 years from now in the age of the code. But I think in this case, it would be beneficial for us to move it forward. Second thing is, I think that this conversation about approving particular codes or modifying them, we've always been able to reach out and talk with the particular stakeholders and whether or not they are, should have their positions considered. I think that if we were to look at moving forward with the standardized codes, it would obviously allow us to move these codes forward in a much faster fashion. My suggestion would be is that we have, such as the Policy and Finance Committee, maybe take a look at whether this is something that should be changed. And let's start a discussion now. We've got one code, as Richard mentioned, that's due to be updated. And then let's make a decision so that as we go to the next phase, we're deciding whether or not we're going to do standardized or go through the issue of doing stakeholder meetings. And so that would be the request that I would have, is that we look at this decision on whether we want to do standardized or stakeholder discussions for a future Policy and Finance Committee, if at all possible.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
So if we were to adopt the 2018 code, I'm just using this for an example, and there's things in it that our stakeholders don't like, we could come back and amend that. Is that correct?
Well, the first process would be, which is something that was happening, if there's something in the code, they're building something or wanting to do something, they can come to the building official and ask if they can get an exception to it. And if it's not agreed to, then they take it to the board, and then the board would have an option to grant them a variance. So they have a way of relief by going through the code before and addressing those issues before. We cut down on the amount of time we spend at the board because we address the issues up front with the people who are doing the building. So that's the benefit of going through the code. So they do have some type of relief if we adopt the code without going through it and it's causing them some hindrance, they can bring it to the city, and if the building official doesn't approve it, then they can go to the board, and the board has the opportunity to approve it.
So if there's stuff in it that they feel that doesn't need to be changed, are you wasting your time talking to them about that change?
Sorry, I'm not following your question.
I mean, well, it's just a little bit confusing to me why we go to the board before we change the code. You're saying,
Councilwoman,
yes.
what I think that you're wondering is, why are we doing the process? And what I hear over and over from the rest of the governing body is frustration with the process of going back to the stakeholders so that they then make the determinations with regards to the changes. Whereas, like Councilman Emerson was indicating, there's many communities all around us that bypass that. And I think that the greater question that I keep hearing from everybody that has spoken on the board, who has expressed some frustration, is I think that and this is just my recommendation, and from what I'm hearing, I think that if we want to have a more updated policy, I think that we could approve this one tonight. But then I think that as a governing body, we have to sit down and take a look at how we're approving all of these policies, especially these codes that typically have to go through a board. And then the governing body has to make the determination as a policy decision. Do we want to continue having this process, or do we just want to say that from now on, our policy will be that upon the arrival of a new code, the expectation is that staff will have 90 days to review the brand new code and then approve it? Because the other thing that we don't want is our staff not to be cognizant of what the changes are on that code. So if we would give our staff at least 90 days to review the code, become aware of the code, and then automatically bring it for approval in front of the governing body so that they could let us know what the changes have been, it changes the dynamic on how we approve these, and it'll put us back to being closer to being in a more modernized building code and all these other codes that we're discussing.
And Mayor, I get that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out, I thought Neil said to adopt the 2018 code. Okay, so my thing is, staff is saying adopt the 2015 code. So if we adopt the 2018 code, like Neil had suggested, which I agree, then if for some reason we adopt it and there's something in there that this board doesn't like, all I wanted to know is can we go in and amend it and change it?
Councilwoman, sorry. Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Ortiz, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, you are amending the code that's in front of you tonight. It is full of amendments. And so if you wanted to kind of reverse that and adopt the off-the-shelf code, if you will, and then work our way through matters that are in conflict with that code that we want to come back to you with, you can amend it later. Yes, that is true. So I hope if that's the question.
That does help me. So because we're trying to figure out whether to adopt the 2015 or the 2018. That's what I heard thrown out there, correct?
Yep.
Councilman Dobler, for clarification, was your intention that we approve this code now so that we could have something to work on with the expectation that we will start moving forward on changing the code?
That was my suggestion, that we approve the 2015 tonight, but start moving immediately towards adoption of the most recent code, whether it's 2018 or 2021. I guess the answer I heard back made me question whether we'd ever get there. Let me just put it this way. If our intent is to move towards adopting codes as they come out, given the 90-day staff review or whatever, then I could support adopting this code tonight, knowing that maybe in 2 months we can adopt the 2018 code, or in a year we can adopt the 2021 code. But if we're going to keep doing this process of spending years thumbing through 300 pages of code in front of a committee, then I don't think I can support this tonight. Thank you.
And the only thing that scares me, Madam Mayor, is they've talked about the time, they've talked about meetings. So I don't know if this can be done in 90 days. They've talked about no staff available. They've talked about all the things that hinders them from adopting that. Thank you.
And Councilwoman, I'm going to call on Councilman Lesser that has been patiently waiting. The clarification that I want to make is that the reason that it's taken so long is because prior to bringing it for approval, the city of Topeka has a unique thing that we do, that we bring it out to stakeholders. So what the policy change would be the council having in one of the next meetings, the city manager putting on the table an agenda item that would help us then not have that discussion with stakeholders and give the staff just enough time to read it so that they can give us an update on the approvals. And then, like you said, if there were any big changes or concerns from the stakeholders, they can come to the meeting and advocate there.
If I may, Mayor, I think
Yes.
what scares me is change with our stakeholders. If they don't want it, they're going to raise a big stink, which is going to delay it. And I can see that. Even with what happened with Tony Emerson's change. And so, you know, it's always hard. It's always hard for change. I'm not saying it's not a good change, but I don't want to put more on staff than they can. I don't want to set them up to fall. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Lesser, thank you for your patience.
Sure. Couple questions. Remind me, what code are we on? What year are we on the mechanical and the plumbing?
We're the 2015 on, I believe, on all of those. Let me verify that right quick, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah, I think sorry, Richard, I think the plumbing, we just adopted 2018.
2018?
Yeah.
Okay.
2018.
Yeah, it's so many of them, I can't remember.
The only question I have is it seems as we talk about the stakeholders, these stakeholders, the majority of them, if we're talking about the contractors and such, they're working in all these different locations. So they're already aware of, you know, if a contractor's working in Lawrence, if they're working in Olathe, if they're working in Wichita, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to me that the learning curve is on our end, not necessarily on the stakeholders end. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah. I guess depending on what code they're in and depending on what the issue is, I guess that statement could be true.
If Crossland or McPherson or KBS are doing jobs in Olathe and in Lawrence, and they're already on, you know, whatever, you know, it doesn't necessarily matter what the year is, but they're already, let's say, on 21, then they're coming back to Topeka to work. The burden isn't necessarily on them. The burden it would be on us if we were to update the code, because they're already working in most communities with that. Would that not be a correct statement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm thinking back to the last couple of times we've done codes and some of the counsel that we've been given then. I like the idea of putting this into policy and finance to look at just what our rhythm would be. But I recall, for instance, that maybe not right at first, but as we considered these codes, the staff ended up giving us a grid that showed us all the different codes and what year we were at with all the different codes. And that was really helpful to give the council some perspective. And I say that for two reasons. One, because that 1997 code, for a couple of reasons that staff could explain, but anyway, it was the only outlier. Everything else was we were in 09 or 15 and so on, and we're jockeying forward in pretty much that 6-year leap. So for the council members that don't know that it was that way. But I also recall being told that even the ICC, if I remember right, was recommending that you not immediately adopt the brand new one, that it was better to wait and go one code back so that it had been out in the field and had been tested and so on. And at least that was the explanation when we were adopting maybe a 2015 instead of a 2018 a couple of years ago. So I think if it went to committee to sort of dial back and talk about what is the best practice in terms of updating your codes and how much time should it take. I also, in just listening to the staff and the council discussion and thinking about the feedback that we get that we're not developer friendly, it makes me wonder whether the customized deals in our codes are coming from the field or whether they're coming from staff. You know, if it has to do with that balance, of course, of the professionalism of the staff and then supporting or discouraging if we have lots and lots of amendments. You know, if that very participation is causing us some problems, maybe the committee could review that, if that's where the city manager was going as well, to look at process and how many changes we make customizing our codes versus other cities, if overall this developer friendly issue is one for us. And last, I asked a question when I was reading through this, and this, I'm just wondering out loud with everyone. Apparently the proposal on page 4, well, no, I'm not sure. Anyway, the proposal in these changes is to have any final appeals go to the district court instead of to the council. And apparently we do that and that's our first time for this one. And I can see some reasons to do it. On the other hand, I'm wondering if the appeals are never coming to the council, then the council never realizes where the points of contention are about the code. Now, maybe once again, they should go to the district court, but somehow when the committee meets and thinks about it and when the council is advised about it, we get not just do this or do that, but get sort of a report of where the points of contention have been and what this update is doing to resolve those points of contention in the past and bring it current, of course. But we're kind of doing this in a vacuum, it seems. I mean, just wondering a lot of things about just our overall routines as I hear everybody's input. So I certainly think whether we vote this through tonight, if the committee's ready to go, again, I'm probably still ready to do that, but putting it overall into the committee to examine the whole process that we're doing and how much time it ought to take and what that maybe an updated procedure should be sounds like a good idea. Thank you.
Councilman Dobler? Sorry, Councilwoman.
That's right.
Thank you, Mayor. I would make a motion to remand this ordinance to the Policy and Finance Committee for their recommendation.
We have a motion by Councilman Dobler. We have a second by Councilman Emerson. Seeing no other comments, I think we proceed with a vote to remand this to the Policy and Finance Committee.
Councilmember Spiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
and Mayor De La Isla.
Yes.
We have 10 yes. Motion carries.
All right. We now move on to item D. If the clerk would read.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
did have one question. I was going to ask one other question. Did Richard fall off already?
I think he did.
He did.
What?
Yes, I don't see him here, not even in the,
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
can Mr. Fyander answer your question, sir?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank
We move on to item D, if the clerk would read.
Item D is a resolution of advisability introduced by City Manager Brent Trout authorizing improvement project number T-601124.00, which provides for street improvements in Aquarian Acres subdivision number 9 as more specifically described herein.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The city is being asked to approve the creation of a special benefit district for the Aquarian Acres subdivision number 9. Staff has conducted an analysis and determined it meets the financial threshold to be approved. I will have Jessica review the financials for this special benefit district. Jessica?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So tonight we'll actually be reviewing 2 special districts that have submitted their petition and other documents to the city for consideration of creating a special benefit district. And for some of you that may be new to the process, the city has a policy that is listed on the city's website and was also provided to you in your packet. But that policy basically just lays out the purpose of what a special benefit district should be, and then what items need to be included in the petition and information that is submitted to the city, and then also what the review process looks like broadly. So the purpose of a special benefit district is really to encourage development, and this is one of the ways that the city can do this. What happens when a developer submits a petition with all the information? The city staff convene a committee to review the documents along with the financial analysis. So that committee includes the city manager, that includes, this committee was planning, public works, finance, and legal as well. And if I'm forgetting anybody, please somebody jump in. What we look at is essentially that they're providing all the information that we need, but then we also dive into the project budget. And the reason that we dive into the project budget is that unless the developer were to pay off a certain amount before it is finalized, the city will actually issue general obligation debt to support this project. And the reason that the city does that is that the goal is to encourage development, which would bring in additional revenue such as property tax, and that essentially pays for the debt service, and then also for the project expansion. So with the Aquarian Acres subdivision number 9, the committee has met. I received information from utilities, public works, legal, and planning. The Aquarian Acres subdivision number 9 is, I believe this is not the first subdivision or application in this area. Bill can jump in if we have questions, whether it's the second or third, but this particular subdivision is for 16 houses. It is to fund both streets and stormwater improvements. And the way that we look at it is we first look at the cost of the streets, the cost to maintain those streets, and then what the offsetting property tax revenue is likely to be. So in this case, Public Works estimates for the 1,882 feet of street pavement that it would cost approximately $6,121 a year, with property tax for all 16 properties coming in $16,922. So the difference on an annual basis would be a net of about $10,800. Looking at utilities obviously gave us this information. There's approximately 640 feet of stormwater facilities expected at this section. We would expect operating costs to be about $136 a year. We also include replacement cost as part of the calculation. And if you do that by the portion of the year over the time period we looked at, it'd be about $648 a year. with revenue for stormwater for all 16 properties being a little bit over $1,000. Again, the difference is that the city would be bringing in more money than it would cost to maintain these assets. The second page just reviews the estimated property tax impact on issuing the general obligation bonds. The developer estimates that the total probable cost for this subdivision is about $520,000. If you calculate the debt service cost and then you put that over the life of the bonds by property, we anticipate that the average owner would pay $2,246 in associated costs with the bonds. So we compare this information to what has been submitted by the developer, and the expectation through their realtor and other advice is that these properties can support that additional specials payment. So with that, if you add all that information together, we believe that it will bring in more revenue than it costs the city. And then the other piece is that the additional specials on these properties will, according to the realtors, would be a reasonable additional cost. Any questions?
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to find on the agenda the name of the developer. Can you provide that to me, Jessica?
Or it should be in their petition, which is one of the documents, but totally understand.
I'll get my iPhone for that.
If I may, Councilwoman, it's Drip A, Mike Drip A. He's done the last thing that's over there. I know this is down the road from your brother-in-law, and he's the one who did that other section there.
Okay. Okay, my bottom line question then on this, there is no issue to be had with the developer owing back taxes, correct?
Yeah, he provided, and it's in the packet, a statement that he is good on his property taxes.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Okay.
We do have, as we continue with the questions to help assist in our discussion, an individual signed up to speak. We have Mr. Jeff Laubach that is signed up. Is he available?
Yes. This is Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You have 4 minutes to speak.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Laubach with SBB Engineering. I'm the civil engineer on the project, and basically just here for any questions or comments. Jessica did a great job recapping, so I'm here for any questions that the council may have.
Okay, wonderful. And I assume that it will be the same for the next item. So what I'll do is I'll remind everybody that you're here in case they have any technical questions with regards to the engineering of the project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments from the governing body? I see none. If that is the case, what is the pleasure of the body? Councilman Emerson?
Mayor, this is in my district. I would move approval.
Do we have a second? Councilwoman Ortiz? Do we have any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Councilmember Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lusser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla.
Yes.
And Councilmember Hiller.
Yes.
We have 10 yes. Motion passes.
All right, we now move on to item E, if the clerk would read.
Item E is a resolution of advisability introduced by City Manager Brent Trout authorizing improvement project number T-601123.00, which provides for street improvements in Misty Harbor subdivision number 5, as more specifically described herein.
City Manager.
Thanks. The city is being asked here to create a special benefit district for Misty Harbor subdivision number 5. Staff again has conducted the analysis and determined that it meets the financial threshold to be approved. Jessica will go through this one as well to explain and review the financials for this special benefit district. Jessica?
Thank you. So this benefit district is Misty Harbor subdivision number 5. This is for 26 lots, and it is again both for streets and stormwater management improvements. I'll go through the same process again. I'll talk about streets first, followed by utilities, and then property tax. So in terms of the streets, there's 26 lots, estimated about 2,350 feet of street pavement. Over the life, over the 50 years, on an annual basis, we would expect to collect approximately $27,478 a year for all 26 lots in terms of property tax. The total cost of annual maintenance for that length of road is approximately $7,636, and you can see that in the chart that's in the memo. So on a net basis, the city would expect to have a net increase in cost of property tax of about $19,842. Obviously, these are all estimates, and the actual value would be determined at the end. But in terms of utilities, again, 26 lots, about 950 feet of stormwater facility equipment. We would anticipate that the total operational cost is $126, replacement cost $648, with an expected revenue of about $1,679. Again, this is 10 more lots than the last one, so a little under $1,000 a year difference in cost. And then in terms of the estimated property tax, this project is estimated to be $745,000. But because there's more lots in this subdivision, the annual specials is estimated to be $1,980. Again, the realtor support letter believes that these properties can support that additional special amount. So that is a quick summary. Okay.
Oh, so sorry. I was going to say that as a reminder, Mr. Lawback is also available to answer any technical questions with regards to this benefit district. Sorry, Jessica, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's fine. Please cut me off. It's fine.
Any questions from the governing body? Yes, Councilman Dobler.
Yeah, I meant to ask this on the last one too, but it applies to both of them, and this is probably for Mr. Laubach. So this benefit district covers streets. Assume then that sewers and water are going to be covered by the developer. Is that correct?
Jeff Laubach, SBB Engineering. That is correct. For both of these projects, the developer is paying out of pocket for the sanitary sewer and the water.
Thank you. I would just add that's responsible development. I think where we've seen subdivisions get in trouble is when they put everything on specials. This is certainly the way to do it. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? And if there's none, what is the pleasure of the body? Oh, two, Councilwoman Valdivia Alcara, pardon me.
Thank you, Mayor. And just asking again, Jessica, since I'm trying to look up 700 pages worth of information on my phone, are they up on their taxes as well?
Yes, on the last page of their petition, they do sign that they are up to date on, they do not have any delinquent special assessments, ad valorem taxes, or other federal or tax liens.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councilwoman Hiller, did you have something or were you alerting me that I was, thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, forgive me. I was kind of like looking around and I didn't see the hand, forgive me. All right, so now, what is the pleasure of the body?
Move for approval.
We have a motion for approval by Councilwoman Nager. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Dobler. Additional comments or questions? Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have probably a real conflict on this, but my company is doing the utilities for this subdivision. So therefore, to avoid the appearance of any conflict, I'm going to abstain from voting on this.
Thank you. Okay, additional comments? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Council members Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Abstain.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
we have 9 yes and 1 abstention. Motion passes.
All right, we now move on to the non-action item portion of the evening. At this point, non-action item A, if the clerk would read.
Item 5A is a discussion of proposed amendment to Title 18, Division 4 of the Topeka Municipal Code, Zoning Code regarding amendments to the regulation of short-term rentals referred to in the current zoning code as bed and breakfast homes and bed and breakfast inns.
City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As the clerk read, this is a change to our zoning code, and it relates to an interesting trend related to short-term rentals and providing some regulation that is in addition to what we had in the code previously. To go through it, I'll ask Bill Finder to do a presentation related to this code change. Bill?
Mr. Finder, you're on mute.
Thank you. Tonight, as was mentioned, we get to go down a little zoning code 101. Short-term rentals. These are going to be recommendations that have come forth from staff, stakeholders, and the Planning Commission that we want to go over with you tonight. It is a little nuanced, but very important indeed. So let's just start at the beginning and answer what is a short-term rental. An STR, which we'll refer to those. You probably know those as Airbnbs or VRBOs. You've probably used them yourself. I certainly have as I travel, but many people use them for work or to do business or for events. And so they're quite ubiquitous out there. They're much easier to use these days because of the online platforms such as Airbnb. And so there's some very good benefits. They also can generate some impacts if not carefully regulated in our local codes. Currently, this use is not defined in our zoning code. So that kind of is the issue that we came across. kind of came to a head last year. We had a decision that ultimately was brought to us a number of concerns in the greater Auburndale neighborhood about what we call bed and breakfast homes or inns by our current code. These were really the Airbnb short-term rentals, but because our code was not up to date with that terminology and those standards, the Board of Zoning Appeals ultimately concurred that these do fall under a bed and breakfast home category. But we decided to pause, step back, and really bring everybody together, because we knew that if we just went ahead and went down this road, which we did the research, we have 32 such properties in the city limits, 18 of those in single family zoning districts. We could potentially be bringing back 18 to 32 conditional use permits and going through a big process when in fact we may not need to do that. And we wouldn't want to certainly do that on outdated standards. So we stepped back, took the last half of 2020 to really dig into this, meet with the neighbors who had concerns about these in the neighborhood, meet with the owners and the operators, and really try and look at, again, other cities and best practices, and try to come back with different or updated standards to our zoning code. As I mentioned, we did some pretty thorough research, which is in the packet, and we noticed that most other cities of our size are experiencing these land uses, and not all of them have them regulated. They are probably more so in areas that have a lot of tourism, a lot of vacation hotspots, are experiencing more pains with these. We didn't really have a lot of issues. We did, in fact, the issues, the complaints that we received last year were really the first that I'm aware of that we received. So we went forward with our process with the stakeholders, and this is what we came up with. The current definitions on the left-hand side, you can see, are all bed and breakfast related. Bed and breakfast home, bed and breakfast inn, and those were replaced with the proposed definitions on the right-hand side. So now we came up with the short-term rental, STR, types 1, 2, and 3. The type 1 is the least intensive. This is a owner-occupied house or dwelling up to 5 guest rooms, and that are rented out to a transient guest, which is defined as up to a consecutive period of 28 days of a stay. The next level up, type 2, are these same number of allowed sleeping rooms, but for non-owner occupied. So these would be landlord type situations, same period of days as these are for all transient guests. And then type 3 is the most intensive. These are anything over 6 or more bedrooms. So that's the basis, that's the foundation of moving forward, defining those terms. You'll see these in a lot of other, as I found out, many other cities tend to break them down in this manner. And what we ended up doing is then plugging those definitions into our zoning and land use matrix. I'll try and help you here. The first couple lines, the first couple rows here are our old bed and breakfast home and inn categories. You can see, and let's just focus on this column here, this first column. That's the single family zoning districts, and that's really where the issues we were trying to focus. That's where the concerns, most of the concerns definitely come from. And so what did we do with those? Well, in the past, any bed and breakfast home or inn would have had to have had a conditional use permit approved by the governing body. As you can see, when we broke those into the 3 types of STRs, the most intensive STR type 3 still has to get a conditional use permit in single family zoning districts. The other 2, the less intensive, the 5 or less rooms, would just require an administrative permit. And to do that, they would have to meet certain standards that we currently updated in this ordinance. If they cannot meet those standards, that's what this C is for. If they cannot meet those standards, then they would have to get, and they could apply for a conditional use permit and go through that process. So really moving from everybody getting a conditional use permit to most folks just needing a administrative permit if they meet those standards. So what are those standards? We keep talking about standards. Those the first 2 at the top, the character and events, those standards did not change. We just carried those over from bed and breakfast, which were already existing. So the character of the dwelling still has to maintain a residential appearance, no appearance of a business use, such as signage, events. Again, you're not supposed to have any events in the type 1s and 2s. You could have those in type 3 with some restrictions. The spacing is a new requirement that came out of a concern from the neighborhood in question. So any type 2, that's the landlord, that's the one that is not owner occupied. Any type 2s after March 1st would not be allowed to be closer than 500 feet. We're trying to not concentrate those or over concentrate a block, which is a block face is typically 500 feet. Another new standard would be the permit standard, similar to what we do with home occupation. Again, these STRs are quasi businesses, much like a home occupation is a quasi business. You're operating a business out of a residential district. So an administrative permit with standards is very appropriate. So there's that flexibility, but also some things in place so that they do not become full-fledged commercial operations in residential areas. These are good for 2 years, may be revoked for non-compliance. And then when they are approved, we would notify adjacent neighbors of those approvals, and they would be notified of the standards that would need to be maintained. And then lastly, we have some other new standards that involve limits on commercial vehicle parking, noise, and trash. The last standard and the one that caused probably the most discussion revolved around parking. I will try and make this as simple as possible. We could really go down a rabbit hole here, but we tried to show you an example of probably the most extreme case because this is such a tight and narrow lot. But suffice to say, there is required parking for a short-term rental. That is 1 parking space for every 2 guest bedrooms. There's a little bit difference between types, but for the purposes of trying to explain this, in this example, that is the case. So 1 space for every 2 guest bedrooms. As you can see by this particular lot, they do not have any parking space on their current site. So they don't have any off-street parking. We do, as a part of the recommendation, we do allow some off-street parking, or I should say, we do allow some of the on-street parking to qualify for their required parking. There's a certain amount of distance that has to be unobstructed. In this case, this lot really only has enough room for one unobstructed space on the street. So with 0 spaces off the street, you come back down to the bottom here, and you can see that only allows them to have 2 guest rooms max. So the parking really kind of can dictate limits that will help neighborhoods be more compatible with these uses. And you can kind of see how in this extreme case, you could still have a STR. You're just going to be limited with the number of rooms in the house that you can use for that. So that was kind of the point there. With that, I will rest and see if you have any further questions. I do have with me Mike Hall. He's our current planning manager and was the lead project manager on this process. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bill, for the presentation. I was wondering, you said that these places cannot do weddings, you said. So does that apply for like a family wanting to have a wedding in their backyard?
Madam Mayor, no. When I say weddings or events, these would be for business purposes, if you will, family events, parties, as you would at anybody's house. There are no restrictions with this. It's only as part of a business. You couldn't do that.
Okay, I was going to say typically pre-COVID, my house was the party house. So I was like,
were you making any money off of it?
No.
Okay, well, then you're good.
No. Okay, Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really appreciate that as part of this, the neighbors are being notified, because I think that brings some accountability to the owners of these rental spaces, as well as kind of defines the protections for those neighbors. I think that's one thing that could really clear things up. So I really appreciate that being part of the process. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the staff, because we've been back and forth today, with me going, I love this, but there's something missing. What is it? And it's taken some back and forth. I want to echo Councilwoman Nager's comments. I think, well, first, I think the standards are great. I think that what you came up with is really good. And people saw, that map, the complaints came from my district. Most of the ones that we have are in my district. Some of the ones that have been and gone are in my district. And those of us that have lived in Central Topeka for a long time and have seen things near the hospitals, near the Capitol, and so on, that have been short-term stays for a long time, we've seen them function. And I think that the standards are great in that they are responsive. It really did include the neighbors. They're really responsive to the concerns that the neighbors have had. And so I support all of that. What I finally drilled out, though, was that there was a nagging concern, and it turns out that it's based on an assumption that was put forth through the process of these hearings. And that was that what you got in front of you refers only to stays of 28 days or less. And many, many people stay longer than that. The legislators come for this session. Students come for 6, and interns. We're doing plug and play. Those are 6-week cohorts. A lot of construction workers come and stay for entire seasons. Sometimes, as I understand it, even longer. All of those are people who are not living here. They're not planning to live here. It is a temporary stay for them, but they are staying much more than 28 days. And without making reference to where those stays that are longer than 28 days are, we've got kind of a legal hole. I think it's easy to fix, but I wanted to explain. When I've asked the staff about that, they've said, well, once it's more than 30 days, it's a rental. These are not landlord-tenant situations. They don't morph into them. They're not what people want. Landlord-tenant is covered by a major residential landlord tenant act in Kansas. It's over 40 sections. If it's a rooming house, it's covered by not only the KRLTA, but also health code standards. Those are, if you think about rentals, you're supposed to make an application, you have a security deposit, you have inspections, you have rules, you have notices. There's all kinds of things that are legal rules that are included in a regular landlord-tenant situation. These are not, and what these owners do need is, I think what they're under is what they call the innkeeper's rules, so that if you need to kick somebody out, you just tell them to move out. If they've left stuff or whatever, there are rules for what to do with people's belongings that are different than a landlord-tenant. My understanding is that the reason that the staff put the 28 days in was just to sync it up with the transient guest tax, which talks about 28 days. But with a little research, it turns out that the TGT people know that sometimes people will come and they're short-term, really short-term stay, and then they stay longer than 28 days, which is fine. Or sometimes they show up and they know they're going to stay longer. The state people, in terms of collecting that tax, just if somebody's there less than 28 days, they collect it. If they stay longer, they don't collect it. If it was already collected, they give it back. It's just not an issue. So in terms of that reference, having the 28 days in our zoning and use ordinance is not necessary. And in fact, it's confusing, because if we have the 28 days in there, then where do these properties fit once somebody has stayed longer than that? I would suggest that the fix is to simply drop the 28 days limit and just define it instead, like they do in the dictionary on transient or some other choice of word, that just says this is somebody who is who is planning to stay only a short time, and this is not intended to be their primary residence. Something as simple as that. And then we go ahead and do a certificate no matter what zoning district they're in, so that everybody knows. They know that they're registered. If there is an incident that occurs, the police or other regulatory authorities can figure out whether it is a residential rental or whether it's a short-term rental, and approach the rights and responsibilities of the owners and the residents accordingly. It will benefit both of them. Again, it's an easy fix, in my opinion. That way, we too will have a better idea of who all the constituents are in that arena. I was contacted by somebody today, and we were talking it through, and that individual had looked at the registry, and there were 58 today. It can come and go, which is fine, but that simple certificate that the staff has worked out makes a lot of sense to me. As long as it's covering our costs to get them registered, we're keeping it very simple like we have before. Those standards really will help in neighborhoods. I think they're all excellent. Just wanted to make that one suggestion to look into before we bring it back for a vote.
Mr. Feinder?
Yeah, if I may make one point, and do appreciate the good discussion that we had the last 24 hours. Just so everyone understands, on the 28 days, and Councilwoman is correct, we did want to, on the advice of legal, sync this up with state law, which uses 28 days for a transient guest. We also sunk it up with the recent TMC amendment you guys made on transient guest tax. But anybody who stays, this is not a limit. The 20 days is not a limit. It does not prevent anybody from being in a staying longer than 28 days. As I tried to explain to as I was talking with staff, this is more of an accommodation for those short-termers, which we don't have in our code currently. And so if they stay beyond the time that we've defined as 28 days, and they're in a residential district, that is a residential use, and they can come or go and stay longer than that, and nothing is impacted by this ordinance. All we would do with this is carve out a definition for those short termers, and what is that, and to put a number on it. 28 days would be uniform with the other definitions by law. So it just want to let everybody know this does not limit anybody from renting out any house, any dwelling for longer than this time period. That is absolutely normal, and there's no regulatory mechanism in this ordinance that would prevent that. We are just accommodating the short termers, if you will, for people that want to do that, as opposed to longer term. So good points, but I just want to make that one. Thank you.
City Manager.
Yeah, I think it probably would be best if, this is on this particular issue. We do have 2 weeks before the next meeting, we're going to bring this back, and we'll have legal do a deeper dive on this and provide an answer to the whole governing body related to this language idea change. That's part of the reason we have these as discussion items and then have them as a vote. And so we can do that for you and be able to provide a better answer in more detail.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what was overlooked was the whole legal issue of owners and occupants. And you're talking to the landlord tenant lady, right? So dealt with that a whole lot, and you need to know what governs that relationship, whether it's tenant landlord law, whether it's innkeeper's law, all the way down to, if somebody's there that doesn't belong there, you've got to be sure you can identify that they're a trespasser and get them out. And it's that way. And so the owner, you've got to go through the legal stuff of making sure who's got the right to say who belongs there and who doesn't. And they have to be able to ask them to leave if it's a short-term rental, for instance. So thank you.
All right. Yes, Councilman Duncan.
All right, Bill. I'm going to ask a very practical question so people can wrap their head around this a little bit. So my wife and I decide to buy another house and we move. We decide we're going to turn our current house into a short-term rental place. My question is the process then, and I've read through the thing, so I think this is right, is we come to the city, we get our permit, we say we're going to be type 2, I guess, if we're not going to live there. Mm-hmm. Great. You guys are going to come and tell us all the rules, give us our permit, inspect us. You're going to notify our neighbors, correct, that there's going to be a short-term rental. So then what is the process? What is going to stop me from being able to move forward? Can the neighbors file a petition to not allow the permit? Can you just unilaterally decide, no, we just don't think this neighborhood should have a short-term rental? I mean, I'm trying to think of what those obstructions might be in this process.
Councilman Duncan, good question. I've thought that through myself. Really, the standards that I went through, whether it's for character, parking, there's a couple others that we would, I guess, inspect, if you will, and say, okay. And I think parking is the easiest one for us to kind of understand. Is you have to show a number of parking spaces that will accommodate the number of guest rooms you're asking to be permitted. And I think that one would be the one that could either limit your rooms or allow you to move forward. But neighbors would not. Neighbors are. It's a notification of neighbors, not an appeal from neighbors. So the only time that I would say you would be in jeopardy of maybe not either getting the permit or getting it revoked is if you violated one of those standards, and And then that could be done through staff inspection and enforcement. There's once you pay your fee, you get your permit approved. We're probably, and we do the initial check. In those 2 years, unless we hear something from a neighbor that says, "Hey, we've got a garbage laying in the street every night. What's going on here?" We're not going to go back out again until you would come back to us for a renewal of that permit. So we're going to depend on neighbors to let us know if you're doing the right thing.
Okay, I appreciate that. No, I think overall this is a great effort here, and I think it's really close. I believe we do need some sort of permitting process for all the things we've talked about tonight, and to ensure that nothing impedes individuals' ability to generate revenue and have a business that allows them to do this with their homes, but also protects the neighborhoods from becoming too many of these or causing problems for neighbors as can happen. So I think this is, and I do think, even though it is different from the TGT process to some degree, which I worked on last year, I think this will also help us with some of the issues on that side of it in terms of collection of revenue and some other things too. So overall, good work, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Finder, thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward to us. I guess one question I have is about, you kind of mentioned enforcement, but how would this be enforced? Who would be the enforcement for this?
Thank you, Councilman Emerson. We'd have a zoning inspector that if we get a call, then they would go out and do the inspection for the complaint and talk to the people doing the complaining. So it would be a person assigned to zoning enforcement matters that we have.
Okay, and I guess just a follow-up, does that person have the capacity? Sorry, capacity is a bad word. Would that person have the time? I guess I'm always a little leery of adding some new rule that then we need more people, or stretches our people too thin that we already have. Is that an issue?
Not in my mind, but you know what? I don't know. It could be. It could get to that point. And I think if it gets to that point, we'll have another different conversation about how to address that, whether that is through a more non-staff intensive process that may have to come back through you guys more, or we look at a different way to staff it. Our current zoning inspector is awesome. Megan Roadcap, she came over from property maintenance. She has she has a lot of capacity. So in this case, I'm putting a lot of faith in our one person to cover 60 square miles of the city. But I would echo some of your concerns. Is I don't know. I don't in the 10 years or so that these have been out there in Topeka, last year was really the first year we got complaints about neighbors not liking them. And so that tells me that it's not a full-fledged fire that is raging throughout the city. There's going to be some spot issues, and I think we can definitely handle spot issues.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
That just raised one question from Councilman Emerson. Then do we need to specify in this who oversees this, or is that just implied, I guess? I mean, do we need to make that more clear?
Councilman Duncan, it is very clear that the authority would rest with me to make the ultimate decision: approve the permit, not approve the permit, yank the permit, and me or my designee.
Great, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Great discussion, guys. We know that I could have parties in my house and that neighbors can stop people from using their STRs and that we have a person to help us with inspections too, so. All right, seeing none, again, great discussion. Understand that if something is lingering and you do need some support from Bill or any questions that you have before this is brought back in front of the council for a final approval, please make sure that you do so. I really appreciate all the work that our staff puts forth, and you know, this one is, like Bill very well said, it's a new one. It's a new one. It's a good thing. New things are happening in our community and we're responding. So thank you very much. At this point, we move on to item B of the non-action items, if the clerk could read. Actually, before I do that, I want to take a pulse of the governing body. I know that this is the last non-action item before we go into 2 individuals for public comment and then the announcements. We typically around 8 o'clock take a quick break. Just nod your head if we need a quick break so that we can keep just going through. I see none. All right. We then move on to item B.
Item 5B is discussion of the proposed 2022 to 2031 capital improvement plan and 2022 through 2024 capital improvement budget.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we conducted the work session on February 9th, and since then we've sent out supplement 1 with answers to questions that were brought forward around that time. So today's agenda is pretty simple. I'm bringing forward an open-ended question that if there are items that you would like to talk about tonight or have us research or that type of thing, I'm really just trying to prime the pump here that in case there are items that you're concerned about from that point as we've had the discussions and received additional information. And you know, they're not having any, there's no particular presentation tonight, just trying to see if there are other items that you'd like us to research between now and then. This will be back on the agenda for discussion and a couple of other presentations on some items, deeper discussions on March 2nd and March 9th. So that's really where it's at. Staff is here to be able to answer questions if there are any right now, or take notes on questions you'd like us to get an answer back on.
Sorry, Councilman Emerson. I'm trying to click it and it's not working.
No problem, Mayor. Mr. Trout, I don't know that I've gotten anything. I got a new book yesterday, but was there something else that was those questions answered? I'm sorry, I can't find that if there was.
Yeah, so our budget manager, Stephen Wade, sent out a new supplement 1 about a week ago as an attachment. Steve, what day was that actually sent? You're muted. There you go.
Let me look real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. I did find that. I'm sorry. I thought you meant something in the last few days. Sorry.
It's pretty lengthy, so it might take a little time to review, but it's really intended to try and it's some deep dive on particular issues. So, Jessica, did you have anything you wanted to add?
We did receive obviously questions at the work session, and then we've received a handful of follow-up questions since then. So we have that list. I believe that we have all of the answers except for one that we're waiting on, but you should be getting the second set of Q&A by the end of this week. So that's coming up. And just looking into March, just echoing what the city manager said, the first 2 meetings in March, the CIP is on the agenda. And, you know, we are really looking for feedback, whether that's from the public or from the city council. If there's specific projects, areas, funding sources that we can share more information on, you know, we really would appreciate that feedback. But, you know, we're here to field questions and try to just get the city council and the public answers.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one to bring forth tonight. I asked some of the questions before, and I do appreciate those answers and the follow-ups on those. I'm trying to just get some big picture because the costs relate to whether we do capital projects or how we're doing our maintenance and whether we're really slowing all this down. So I look forward to the other answers. The question I wanted to bring up tonight was just the biogas project. I asked for some follow-up on that because we were advised in one of our briefings that I'm going to make this real simple, that it was very, very expensive, but it turned out we needed an extra $1.2 million to run a pipe under the river or something like that to a vendor's site. And that at the time it was gonna finally break even, including debt, in 27 years. And so I asked, well, okay, what does that mean overall? Could you include the debt in the chart that you gave us? And now when will it break even? And they did, I think, just send it to me, but I think it's coming to everybody. Send another chart, and it would be 34 years. Even though there's a great deal of financial activity, there are so many expenses and the debt is so high that it would be 34 years before it broke even. And further, by then, that there would be other capital replacements and things that need to be done. So my question is this really a good idea? How deep are we in this? And just if the staff could just talk about it. I know we've talked about it for years and finally got started, but it seems like it got way more expensive than anybody anticipated.
Councilwoman Hiller, that's part of one of the final things that we're doing, some additional research. We can't answer, you have that first part, but I can't give you the second part to what you're looking at yet. And so I've asked for staff to do some of that additional work in order to be able to give you that answer based on where we're at in the project, the work that needs to be done, and all our alternatives. And so I don't have the rest of that answer, and that's something that I'm working with staff to get.
Thank you. I didn't expect that answer tonight necessarily, but I did want to bring it up. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Chair. I would just state that it is an expensive project. It is going to be bringing, when everything is said and done, 1.7 million back in that's going to go to utilities. That extra cost, I think, took people by surprise. And I know that you do all the number crunching, Karen, whatever. The bottom line is that I think the majority of people in Oakland would rather see that biogas, even though I have some concerns about it all in and of itself, rather than methane continuing to be flared up in their neighborhood. So we need to think of that point also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional comments or questions with regards to the CIP? Okay, again, as with every item, remember that our staff is here. If you have any questions that you want to send to Brent, he could direct them to the staff, and that way you guys are able to have your answers before we bring these items back up. We now move to the public comment section of the evening. We have 2 individuals signed up for public comment. Public comment is intended to be 4 minutes. The first person signed up to speak is Ms. Danielle Twemlow.
Thank you. I hope you all are staying warm. I'm doing my part in layering up and dropping my temperature every couple hours if I can. I originally had signed up to speak, good work. Had originally signed up to speak thinking that that budget priority was on the agenda for this evening under discussion, but see that it was capital projects, but I'm still going to speak on it anyways. And I don't really have to tell you that people are experiencing unprecedented amount of stress right now, and Topeka is already lacking in mental health care access. And I've recently learned that it has not been a to fund fully the crisis intervention team through the TPD. I've yet to hear any opposition to the CIT, and in fact, it was one of the top responses on the SPCP's community outreach survey as being a priority for our community. In 2020, the CIT had 1,181 co-responder contacts, 4% were referred to jail, 61% were referred to mental health services. The benefits on the actual on Topeka.org's website list things like greater efficiency in obtaining care for persons involved in mental health crisis, reduces recidivism and arrest by diverting individuals with a mental illness to appropriate community mental health providers, enhances officers' skills in responding safely and creatively to mental health crisis situations, increases citizen confidence in reporting, responds immediately. The trained officers are able to be a part of that patrol division, and CIT officers reduce likelihood of physical confrontations and personal injury to both the officer and the individual, and improve satisfaction from the mentally ill and their family. So I'm failing to understand how securing funding for a mental health specialist was not included in this year's budget, as it was alluded to several times within the last few months in multiple meetings. Many organizations have had to pivot priorities and funding during this pandemic. For example, since schools have not been in session, are there funds still set aside for SROs? I understand that officers are pulled to regular duties when school's not in session, but are salaries the only thing as the budget item? If not, why have we not pulled the program when there have been very little days children have been in the building? Policing children in schools should not be a priority at this time. The Governor's Council recommends replacing SRO with social workers anyways, yet we've made no advancement in mitigating efforts such as addressing these social determinants of health. Our own city website states that CIT officers reduce the likelihood of confrontation, which includes interactions with children. The council should assist Chief Wheels on prioritizing his budget to fund this position this year without reducing training hours for officers, and make it a priority when you're looking at the budget to continue funding it in its entirety for the 2022 budget. I'm obviously happy to forward any documentation or reports or studies that have been done, just really outlining the improvements that this has made across the nation. Denver has recently reported some great uses, Austin, but even our statistics show that this is something that we should really take a priority to. So I hope you take that into consideration as you look forward on that budget process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Danielle. We now have Mr. Jeff Martin here to speak to us. Oh, pardon me, Councilwoman Ortiz, before we move forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to tell Danielle, thank you for bringing that forward. I've been working with Vallejo and some of their mental health behavior patients, and I will try. I know you learned that from our special policing committee meeting, and I'm going to try to put more money in the budget. I'm going to make that a recommendation. I did that last year. I asked for an extra 20 or 25,000 that we put in there for mental health, and the vote was 9-1 with one council member that would not budge. It is very important that we have these monies in there. I totally agree with you, and I thank you for coming forward, and I thank you for your email on that and your research on that, because it is very crucial. We don't have a state hospital anymore. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Now, the next individual signed up to speak tonight is Mr. Jeff Martin.
Well, good evening. Can you hear me first? Is it? Okay, thank you. My name is Jeff Martin. I'm the Vice President of Customer Community Operations for Evergy. I wanted to come on here and just address the events of today and really over the last several days. Wanted to give you some background first. And thank you, Danielle. You mentioned it about lowering your temperature in your house. Thank you so much. That is helping the system, and we appreciate it. Want to take you back to February 6th. That's when we started working with the Southwest Power Pool, who has a 17-state region of the transmission system, that they have the responsibility of making sure that it is continuing to deliver power to all of our customers. We're a part of that. We're a member company of that. They also have the accountability of making sure it stays on in these type of weather events. And so we've been working with them. When it became we came to a point where we knew that it looked dire. I want to thank Mayor De La Isla. I reached out to her at 11 p.m. on Sunday evening, and she answered the phone. And I started to deliver the news of what we think was going to happen. At the time, we were at a level 1, which means that we were going to ask our customers to conserve. Again, thank you to all of our customers that have turned the temperature down, turned off lights when it's not necessary, and not using heavy loads during the daytime, washing machines, electric stoves, that type of thing. That is helping this situation, and we do appreciate it. Monday came around. We went from a level 1 to a level 2, which means that we start calling on our commercial and industrial customers to curtail. We got significant amount of reduction from that. However, it was not enough. We then went to a level 3 emergency, and that means that we have to start shedding load. On Monday, that was a 90-minute event. Everything worked out exactly like it should. The only thing that we really saw was that we started getting additional hits on our website, and we basically had to prioritize what they looked at, which was the outage maps and the information that we were sharing. Now come to today. Much different situation. We knew that the temperatures were lower this morning. We knew that there was likely an event that was going to come, that we were going to have to turn off power to our customers again. There's a process that we go through to do that. What we didn't realize was that it was more extensive, much more extensive on the amount of power that we had to reduce, as well as the duration was much longer. I want to apologize. We thought we had good communications out to all of our constituents. Again, Monday was a very good test of that. Tuesday, today was different. We had some communities that were off much longer than we expected. And again, apologize. I wanted to come before this council tonight to thank you for your patience, really thank all of our customers for your patience. We had worked with Mayor De La Isla as well as the emergency management system. She was carrying a lot of the information to a lot of the public affairs, public works divisions, and certainly appreciate that. We were identifying 3 main priorities that we did not want to interrupt. Those were hospitals, COVID vaccination, and anything
Jeff,
that had to. Yes.
Can I stop you for a second? Because
Yes.
you only have 17 seconds, and I think that you need some extra time. Because I'm sure that the council is very interested in hearing everything. You don't have to use it, but how do you feel about giving you an additional 4 minutes with the idea of not
even that
using it
long.
all? 2 minutes.
I was coming to the end.
Okay,
2
so
minutes.
let's say 2 minutes.
Okay.
Do we have a
So
motion to
moved.
extend Mr. Martin for 2 minutes? Councilman Emerson and Councilwoman Hiller, at this point in time, if we could have a vote to extend those 2 minutes. Sorry, Jeff, it's parliamentary.
Understand.
Council members Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
10 yes, motion carries.
You have more time. I'm sorry.
No, understand. And I will wrap this up quickly. I know it's a late evening and we're busy too. So we wanted to have hospitals, COVID vaccination sites, and anything that dealt with natural gas propane delivery, because they are under a severe duress too on delivering that to their customers. Those were the priorities. We are now in a situation, we're in the same situation as we were last night. We're at level 2, and it looks like there is a possibility in the morning that we will have to again go through this process of shedding load to our customers. I will stop there and entertain any questions.
I know that we have been very cautious of just continuing conversations with members that are here to do public comment. But I just want to allow, if there is like a critical question that anybody has, that they want to ask Mr. Martin, that they want to just pass on to their constituents, because I know that Sunday was a big shock. And I knew that there was information out with regards to, you know, conservation, but then the council and everybody knows that I've reached out to them and, you know, to hospitals and school districts and making sure that the word was out. The other thing that I will add to this conversation pertaining to this specific comment, as of today, I've been in contact with the White House with regards to getting in touch with some resources for heating places. Because I think that we tried at one point to work with FEMA to get some trailers for heating, and that response was not approved. And I specifically asked to see if that could be approved for our community as well. I was emailing even in the middle of this meeting to see, you know, letting them know, hey, I called, I'm not getting followed through. So this is a big deal. I'm grateful for Fellowship Highcrest that stepped up yet again in their community, Jonathan Sublette and their team, to provide warming shelters and blankets from 8 to 8. But I know that there's families that are really struggling right now, and in our homeless population as well. So there's in our elderly. So there's so many people that are in need that this is a critical situation in our community. My frustration with when I spoke with the team from the White House today was, I'm going to have this conversation with you today. We're probably going to ask for something, and by the time that you guys can provide me a technical fix, even with your best intentions, the weather's going to change because it's Kansas. But it's been a lot of work. And the frustrating thing is that if you've been watching the news and following, a lot of it is happening from our neighbors down south, and a lot of what's impeding them, us being part of that pool, the SPP is putting us in this position. So it's interesting times. Yes, Councilman Dobler.
Just a quick question, Jeff. I understand your priorities and they seem absolutely correct. I did understand that our major wastewater plant was shut down today. Is water and wastewater treatment not a priority to keep powered up?
You know, we certainly try to keep them on the best we can, but when it comes to a load shed event, there's only so many priorities we can put out there. It's essential to the system that we get that load off as quickly as we can. And again, you know, we're learning from this too. If that priority's wrong, we're going to learn from this and change it in the future. The problem is a lot of those wastewater treatment plants also serve a lot of residential load and businesses, and it's very hard to specifically cut off certain groups from that elimination. You essentially eliminate the whole circuit, which could be, you know, a major load that we need to get off the system.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I did, as part of the conversation that Jeff is having right now, my conversation with city manager had been that wastewater treatment plant for Oakland did go down. It was still on the list, but there was backup generators, correct?
We have a portion of the plant that's covered by backup generator, but the system is in the wastewater treatment plant, it's a gravity feed system, so it will continue to work. It just doesn't do everything that we typically do. So it really didn't affect us too badly with having just a 2.5 to 3 hour outage. And we're working with them to help isolate what that location is. And their staff, the Evergy staff, is already working with us to make sure that it's possible to, if possible, to get that off of the outage grid that we experienced today, so that it's isolated and that we don't have that occurrence again. That and our water treatment plant are the two that Evergy is working with us to make sure that don't go off in the future.
How much of capacity was it lacking? How much was it on? 25% capacity, 30% capacity?
I'd have to ask Bob Sample to give me a specific number. I know that there's certain components that do require power, and that's where we have our generators right now. And so it wasn't anything that affected the ability in the short term to treat that water.
Thank you, because in addition to what was on Facebook, there were quite a few messages and phone calls getting as well about concerns about the plant being down in its entirety. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Martin? Yes, Mr. Duncan.
I will have a question. I want to thank Mr. Martin for coming here this evening and talking to us and putting himself out there. I also want to thank him for, he spoke to me earlier on the telephone, and so some of what I'm about to say, he's already heard. It won't come as any surprise. I can't go back in time and obviously stop sort of some of the issues that we had today, and I think there's a lot of factors as to why those occurred. I think, and I said this to Mr. Martin today, two things I think need to happen to move us forward. First of all, I think that the citizens need a clear explanation of sort of what happened today and all the factors that went into it. I think everybody as a whole understands why these blackouts needed to occur. I think most people understood, I'm going to conserve energy. I may be out of power for 60 to 90 minutes. But what happened is we had people out for 2.5 and 3 hours. And I know that there were various reasons as to why that occurred, but people simply don't know what those are or understand what happened. And I think we have a responsibility to work with Evergy to explain exactly what occurred and take responsibility, both of us, for where, we may have played a part in some of those problems or how we can fix them. I think the second part of that, and this is sort of my formal request to Mr. Martin and Evergy, and I don't know, we can put this in writing, maybe from the city manager's office, if so willing. If not, I'm happy to draft something and anyone who wants to sign on. I think we need to have a postmortem that walks through with an explanation as to where our communication may have faltered between Evergy and the city, so that in the future we can put together a plan that says, how can we better get information between each other so we can then disseminate that to the people as it's happening in more of a real time. And I think that's very doable and feasible. I just think we need to be committed to doing that postmortem. I think the flip side of that too is, and I don't know whether this occurred or not, there may have been some communication breakdowns on our part as a city in terms of us getting communication out to each other so we could get it out of constituents. And so the flip side of that is we should probably also do that sort of postmortem ourselves just to see, if there's improvements we can make. And I think that's, knock on wood, this won't happen for another 50, 100 years, but it could also happen next year again. And I think that we owe it to everybody to show that we didn't just say, oops, sorry, and move on. We put some real time and effort into fixing where some of those faults were. And so I was very critical today of Evergy several times with constituents, and I will still stand by those, but I also did it, as I told Mr. Martin, with the caveat that we are not all perfect. And the goal is, if we can move forward and offer people some explanations and come up with a plan, I think we'll all be better off. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. I appreciated the notice that we got. I wasn't on the inside track of it. Appreciate, Mayor, your role, and then whatever all happened beforehand. What I know is that I immediately pushed it out on my personal Facebook page, which has a lot of followers, and my city one as well. But what we had was way too detailed. There were people that did screenshots of it. But what we had too, and I understand that nobody expected this. We haven't had this happen in forever. Like other things that have happened in the last 12 months, we're punting, including you guys. And I think people understood that to a certain extent, though we all want people in charge to be godlike, right? When crazy stuff happens. But people were panicked. I was nursing people through being frightened and they're asking me for advice. And I did all right. Help some people get through it. I don't know how much practice or prep we can have for something like this. I don't know if it's on your list for the emergency management people, Mayor, whether we focus on other things and because it's been so long since we had a really deep freeze that we didn't think about it, didn't have a kind of a stock set of tips for people when it's going to be cold. I had no idea how people's houses are different, particularly in my district. So I don't know how soon a house gets so cold it's dangerous. You know, I just encouraged people to get all their blankets together and stuff that didn't need electricity, and not so much to go down the basement and do their laundry at night, but to not do it till Wednesday. You know, just don't do it. Don't go to the basement. Don't do it. Just curl up and get a flashlight. But that was kind of off the cuff. It helped, I think. But now that we've been through this, I remember when it used to get sub-zero, I mean, like 20 below for about 3 to 5 days, the first week of January every year. And then it would be 70 the third week of January every year. It was just crazy, but reliable. And so refreshing people, I remember those old cautions about what to do so your pipes didn't freeze, but I can't remember the last time we talked about them publicly. And so maybe even just to the council, I mean, with the affordable housing study that's gone on and the discussion of weatherization programs, which we hadn't had in forever, maybe this all kind of loops together. But I like Councilman Duncan's idea of a postmortem so that you find out for sure what did happen out there. For me, for instance, my Cox went out and I thought probably Cox was out everywhere. Apparently it wasn't, but then the city's system went down as well. So I had no communication except my phone, and I hadn't expected that. I don't know how many people did, and I don't know if Cox going down had to do with the power down. And so protecting our telecommunications, I would think, maybe you did. I don't know what happened, but that postmortem and inviting people to let you know what their ideas were or what their experiences were. I also don't know if there's any way for you to tell us. I mean, there was discussion that maybe it would go off at 8 o'clock tonight. And I thought, well, I didn't go off today. Maybe I'll get cut off in the middle of the council meeting. Oh, well. But people all to the east of me and all to the south of me was cut off, and people from College Hill were saying that they were cut off. So I couldn't get on your website. So I have no idea where was affected. I have no idea where you were going. So those kinds of things could be helpful, I would say.
Yep.
And I don't know what you have in mind for tonight or tomorrow either.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not smart to tell people in advance. I don't know.
No, it absolutely is trying to get, as proactive as we can. And we are in the same situation that we were last night. So there is a high likelihood that we may have some level of load shed tonight and in the morning. So yes, and we're trying to get that information out through our website. I do apologize. We had 6 times the traffic that we typically do on our website, and we had issues. And we were certainly looking into that too. There was not only constraint on our electric system, there are constraints on our IT systems that we found out very quickly.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I think people overall were understanding and made it through okay, which they didn't think they would at first. So we'll do better on the second round just because we're more prepared. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seems that there's no other questions, Jeff. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, it speaks a lot about you guys being able to show up here and show face, and just, be here with us. And I know that it's been hard for our citizens. And I also know that we have a lot of residents of Topeka that are also working in this cold. And I can't imagine, I saw some of the pictures today of people with frostbite all over their face. So it's a two-way. Thank you for being here tonight. It was a scary day, but praise God, we got through it. And thank you for the council members, especially all of you that were taking care of your constituents. I mean, the communications that I've been having with all of you and the level of advocacy is so appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys do honor to your name of being counselors and advocates. Yes, sir.
I would be remiss if I did not thank our employees too. They are out there working 24/7 trying to keep the lights on, and I want to thank them too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin. We appreciate you being here.
Yep. Thank you so much.
We now move on to the announcements. First up, the clerk.
There is no governing body meeting next week.
All right, then we have city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've covered most of what I was going to, when I was answering Jeff's question regarding the blackouts, but we did solve our IT issue. It was an issue related to the startup of the generator. Part malfunctioned. We've got that repaired and it's ready to go. Hopefully we won't have an outage related to IT if the building does go down over there. We had a generator capacity, it just engine fail on a part on it. So related to, mentioned the effort that we have related to the sewer plant, the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant. We're working with Evergy to make sure that that sets on a grid that isn't shut off. And I think that part has been attacked. We have generators that we're running to various locations. If we lose a particular pump station, we're hooking up a generator to that pump station in order to keep that pump station going and keeping our system active. And so our staff is working on those types of situations as they come up based on a grid going down. Want to say thank you to our water crews. They have been working tirelessly related to the water main breaks. We're kind of at a point now where we seem to be holding our own, although I've received a couple of notifications of some recent water main breaks tonight. So appreciate all the work they've done. Street crews, that everlasting snow that we had has made a mess, but I see some melting today, so I'm excited about what the next few days will bring related to that. Appreciate all their work that they've done. A couple of events that are coming up that I want to mention is Operation Hand Sanitizer. We still have a good amount of hand sanitizer that is available. We're going to have a pop-up event at the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging at 2910 Southwest Topeka Boulevard, Saturday, February 20th from 9 to 11. So you can go and pick up a bottle of hand sanitizer for your household if you'd like. The other part that they're going to do is a new thing community engagement is doing with Jayhawk and Shawnee County Health is helping individuals that don't have a device, don't have internet or other capabilities related to filling out the survey related to getting the COVID vaccine. That pop event will have devices and personnel that will help individuals that haven't yet signed up. There's concern that there are individuals that are 65 and older that for whatever reason haven't sent in their survey and then they're not on the list to be able to get considered for getting a call to come in and get their vaccine. So community engagement staff is going to be helping on that. And so that will provide some help for certain citizens that need it. The other event I want to mention is a very important one coming up, which is a I-70 Polk Quincy virtual public meeting going to be held March 3rd from 5 to 6:30. If you go to polkquincy.org, you can get registered to go and be a part of that virtual town hall. This is an opportunity for citizens to see what's going to happen with the Polk Quincy Viaduct project and be able to ask questions and get answers related to that event. And so we're hopeful people will take a look. This is a very important project for our community, and we're excited to continue to work our way down that road of getting that project to come to fruition. So this is another step along that way. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much. I think that continuing in the vein of conversation that we were having with Jeff Martin, I think that the one thing that we will continue to ask our community is to please conserve. I can tell you that I'm sitting here with a blankie, trying to keep my hands warm at home and my toes. Forgive me because Bilbo Baggins has been begging for attention in the meeting. So I don't know if you saw that he pushed me out because I have a rolling seat here. So please, please, please conserve. If you do have a chance, my lights are LED. They're pulling very little energy. I know that that's not something that you could do now. I don't, if you can stay home, please stay home. But whenever you get a chance to do an upgrade, buying 1 or 2 LED lights makes a big difference, not only in your energy bill, but also in the way that you're consuming in your household. The other thing that I was going to say is on the same vein of appreciation, city manager, thank you for your fast response and working with, there was like this chain of conversations happening. Jeff called me Sunday night. Jeff called me Sunday morning, and then once I started getting news, I immediately informed the council before anything was really out there public and permeating the media so that the council would know what was happening. And the other team that I have to say thank you to is to the incident command team from Shawnee County. As soon as I let Dusty Nichols know that this was happening, he immediately called a rapid meeting from the whole team, and we were able to mitigate, talk to hospitals, talk to making sure that we reached out to every school superintendent, making sure that they were able then to pass on any information to our constituency, was able to talk to churches. Churches started talking about what they can do to mitigate. That's how we have Fellowship Highcrest. There was a lot of concerted effort, and this is not a one-person job. This really was everybody understanding what their part was. Molly and Taylor started working on graphics that were being sent out, that were being shared with the county, with the council members. I mean, it was just a work of magic. And the reason that all that was able to happen so fast was because we already had a pre-existing structure of that incident command team that really helped us disseminate all of that information to a larger group. So to those faithful unseen warriors, you know, Derek Furlodge, for example, that created a list of where all the vaccines were at. I mean, just little things that were that critical. Thank you guys so much. To our constituents, you know what, guys, this is an interesting year again. But we are resilient people. I am so sorry for anybody that had the inconvenience. We're hoping that as the next few days go by, the weather is going to continue to improve. And these things that are happening with the blackouts, we can't control them, but we're hoping that they won't be as many, and that we'll be able to do any mitigation that we need to do to prevent this from occurring in our community. This is where our community has a chance to shine. I was asked earlier today, what gives me hope as I do this job? And my answer always is the same. It's my residents. My residents give me hope. Things as simple as knowing that people that knew that we're cold once the electricity got shut off. I have many stories of people saying, hey, I know that you don't have energy. Bring a mask and come over to my house and stay warm because I already went through mine blackout. People offering to warm up food for other people, making sure that people that have babies and elderly in their residences had the support that they needed, figuring out if they needed extra blankets. This is who Topeka is. And you guys give me hope. And we've been through the ringer with this pandemic, and now with these blackouts, things that we can't control, right? But what we can control is how we react to all these things. And as usual, Topeka, you always shine. So with that, Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to give a lot of thanks to the city staff, to the staff of Evergy, and to the governing body for covering. I was very busy at work today, making sure that we were able to fix teeth despite an energy shutdown. So I was not as available, and I really appreciate other people stepping up and filling in that void. I also want to wish a happy Mardi Gras during a not so festive season, and a peaceful and thoughtful Lent season to the Christian community. I also want to wish a happy Chinese New Year that happened on Friday, and just draw attention to the fact that on the coast, there has been a great increase in violence against Asian Americans. And a lot of it is associated to misconceptions about the COVID virus. Please be on the lookout for your Asian brothers and sisters, and be merciful and be thoughtful, and just be the kind people that we all know we can be. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say, as the city manager did earlier, a huge thanks to the Public Works and Utilities folks. Nothing worse than being down in a hole, fixing a water line when it's -6, -7. I don't know how those folks do it, but I'm sure glad they're out there. So they have my thanks, and I'm sure they have everybody's thanks at this point. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Duncan.
There we go. Thank you. Just two things this evening, Mayor. First is I will just reiterate, I do appreciate Mr. Martin coming on here. As I was taking calls and trying to help people today with power outage issues, I had questions and criticisms and others galore on social media of Evergy as I was trying to get questions answered in any way possible. As I said earlier, I still have some of those questions and concerns, but they finally did reach out to me. They didn't have to, right? I've had criticisms before, so I appreciate that they reached out. We were able to answer a few questions and start a dialogue to help move us forward. So I do appreciate that they're willing to have those conversations, and I think that's something. The second thing is sometimes the best compliment you can give to people is that we don't really know that they're there. And by that, I mean, I believe the high yesterday was -1 degree. And yesterday was my trash day. And sure enough, at 7:30 in the morning, sanitation workers came and they took my trash away. And I believe they finally, rightfully so, suspended services later that afternoon and throughout today. But they show up every day, every week, and do their job, both our sanitation and recycling workers. And as my son looked out the window and said, "Oh my gosh, they're out there and it's so cold," we realize that they can, whether it's a holiday or these unbelievably crazy weather times, they come and make sure our trash doesn't collect. So I just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to all of them for continuing to just plug away and do what is a very essential service for all of us to get done on a regular basis. So thank you to all those employees of Shawnee County and Waste Management and other services. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Lesser.
Nothing.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick string. First, I've got on 3 layers in honor of everybody who's bundled up and turned down there. I ditched the pearls, Mayor. I get the layers on, including a sweatshirt. I really appreciate everybody's reactions and their help to one another. And for the most part, just bucking up, and the stories are sweet, actually, most of them. And so it's an amazing way that this community pulls together and people will try and do the right thing and adapt. And I'm proud to live here as always. And I too appreciate the crews, the street crews, the utility crews that have kept the streets open. And I live on a main street, so some of this new equipment, city manager and whoever else, they're cool little tractor-sized things instead of these big honking trucks. And then they're pushing these big, wide, floppy blades, but it sure looked like a much more efficient way to get snow moved. And so I'm thinking the city manager brought some tips from Iowa, but I might be giving him more credit. I don't know. Anyway, I always appreciate the crews. And that includes the IT crew that rescued us as well this time. I wanted to give a shout out and a promotion for a couple of things that are happening in March. This is the poster for the YWCA's 21-day challenge. It's a racial equity and understanding challenge. People can make a donation to the YW through that, but you also can participate for free. It's a combination of things you can read, conversations you can have. It's pretty deep. I've talked to some people that have been through it. So to register for that, people just need to Google the YWCA of Northeast Kansas and get on their website and sign up. So I really encourage people to do that in March. Want to encourage once again that the Mosaic Partner Pairs program is starting for the first time this year. The registrations to be a partner, which would be 3 times a month meetings between April all the way to December, is a tremendous opportunity to get to know someone who's similar to you on the inside, but different on the outside, and develop the bonds of friendship and understanding to help grow and unify our community. And that people can find the sign up by going to topekaunited.org and looking for Mosaic, finding out more information about it. We do, I'm proud to say, have 5 of our police officers enrolled already, as well as a variety of other people from the community. It's going to be fascinating to see who's involved, as well as who the partners are. And it's going to be a great experience for our community. and something that I've personally been involved with, and I know you heard SJ say that he's been involved as well. It's exciting. I also want to know, related to the work that I've been doing on that, I've been exposed to PICSA, which is an international association regarding inclusive prosperity for communities. And it's based on the fundamentals of what the YWCA is doing and what Topeka United is doing as well, is looking at the social determinants of health in a community and how you have to address those relationships and those social determinants of health if you really want to build a fully inclusive, healthy, and prosperous community. And I will share some of that with you when it seems like I don't want to overwhelm people, but as we work more and more deeply in that and look at how appropriate it is for these things to be happening here in Topeka. The slogan, "Why not Topeka?" comes up a lot. But I think we've got the potential. We've got the commitment of large industry, the community foundation, certainly our units of government and the Greater Topeka Partnership to pull together and do it for ourselves, of course, and our neighbors and friends, but also we could be a real role model for others. So pretty exciting. Last, I want to do a shout out to the Choose Topeka program through JADO. Somehow the conversation and the report that the staff had on that, but those who were voted to renew that last week at the JADO meeting. But it turns out that one of the things that I advocated for with the Choose Topeka program was for it to say, to promote that people could get that incentive money to purchase or rehab or rent a property in Topeka. And it turns out that with the idea that it would attract people to our older neighborhoods, to buying a home that maybe wasn't the most expensive one in town and investing in it with their own labor and with those dollars. And it turns out that that is happening. And we've all gotten some reports about how Topeka is getting some recognition for being a very affordable community. And I've asked the GTP people, that wasn't something that they imagined connecting the dots on in putting the Choose Topeka program out, but we know there have been thousands of people interested in it. And I can't help but think that that publicity and the flexibility with that program is helping to create that good reputation for us as well. So just a shout out to everybody who's been involved in the votes, in the consideration, and in rolling out that program. Thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to go over a couple more things about what happened this morning in Oakland and sections of North Topeka. As we know, it went into into 3 hours. Most of the places in Oakland were 2 hours and 15 minutes. Some places in North Topeka went closer to 3 hours. There was never any illusion by anybody in North Topeka or in Oakland that they were going to be given a set time. There's no type of lofty thought like that goes on in Oakland. These are realistic, working, hardworking people, older people on fixed incomes. And so when it happened, people were ready to a point, but people were very concerned about how long it was going to last. The city did a wonderful job with the information that we had. I believe the breach of trust happened between SPP and Evergy, the two of them together, whatever, in their communication with the city, perhaps even to media. Now, if anybody gets offended by me saying that, I can only say too bad. I talked to Mr. Lutz already this afternoon. Jeff Martin today. He called the house. Talked to Laura Lutz already. She told me about pictures that were taken that I put on the Oakland Facebook page as I stayed on them with the duration until the electricity came on. I make no apologies for those statements. As we try to build relationships with corporations in LMI districts, in underserved districts, in places that have not always had the most forthcoming information, transparency is everything. Better to say that a blackout may go 3 or 4 hours and have it be less than that than people thinking it's only going to go half an hour or an hour and starting to really get concerned when it goes past that. People were messaging that their elders were on plug-in medical equipment. I was relaying message from Fire Station 6 onto the Facebook page about how they could not get the garage door open if an emergency call came because electricity was out. There are shotgun houses, a number of shotgun houses in Oakland. These are not houses where you can close off doors because other than a bathroom, there is no doors in the house. So these were people that were scared, and we can all get over the fear. But what I believe, it was a breakdown in communication. I also have had a number of questions about wanting to see comparisons at a council meeting from what sections of town were taken down and for how long. So I don't know if this is, I've heard that the KCC is going to do an investigation into this. That's what I was told by someone at Evergy today. For anyone that took those photos, that shared those photos about what was posted, that's cool, because that's what needs to happen. Organizations, corporations need to know when the people feel fearful or they know they're not being communicated with. So I don't know if we can get Evergy to come back and do a small presentation about what blackouts really mean, how they work in communities, how decisions are made for who it is that gets hit with the blackout, with the rolling blackout. And so again, in communication with Evergy people, I'm still going to say that there was a breach of trust. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Mayor, for all those that were in that chain that were sharing real-time information as it was needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz, I couldn't find you for a second.
No, nobody can find me. I just want to thank Habitat. This Saturday, or this past Saturday, they passed out food. They did a pop-up food giveaway, much needed. There's a lot of hungry people out there. And I just want to give them, as Karen would say, kudos to them. Also, I wanted to remind everyone that VITA is up and running. You just have to mail in your application or mail in your information to them to have your taxes done. And if you need that information, you can call the council office or get a hold of me. I'd be happy to send you that information because it's very vital. They're saying that we need to really push and get our taxes done because some of our stimulus money might be coming attached to your income taxes. And also for those people that have had children or are dependents and didn't have them before. So it's just very vital. So I just wanted to say that. And last but not least, I just asked my colleagues to please pray for all the people that are without power. I have some friends in Texas who are without power, and they're talking about not turning their power on until Friday or Saturday. And they've been out for 72 hours. I have a nephew down there who's from California. So this is new to him. This is all new to him. So, I hate it when we say, well, we don't care about other cities or other states and all of that. I think that's terrible. I think we all should be just grateful that it's just not us, because it could be us. And so I'd ask you to continue to pray for all those that are without power, but it's not a good situation. It's Mother Nature. I do want to thank Evergy for giving us the map and letting us know what was going on. It's whenever we have something tragic, it always seems like there's a breakdown somewhere, but and there's always something we can do better. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have 7 or 8 things. Actually, that was just for lesser. No, like everyone else, I really appreciate the work that Evergy did today, getting out there. I mean, there was obviously some miscommunications, and it's a tragedy that any of that had to happen. But I do appreciate Jeff coming on tonight, and it takes a lot of courage to come into put yourself out there. So I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate our crews out there working on the water and the streets. Street crew did an awesome job over the weekend and in the last couple of days clearing stuff. So thanks, guys.
Council Deputy Mayor Padilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I made my announcements earlier today. I don't have anything more to add today.
I have two really quick things, also for Mr. Lesser. No, but on a serious note, Saturday I got several calls of a water main break. The weather was horrific, and our guys were out there working on 2 water main breaks on Saturday. That's our water division, guys. I mean, they are kicking tail. Our employees are amazing, guys. Thank you. And last, on a very somber note, I heard that our community lost a giant on January 26th. For those of you who knew John Holmlish, you know that he was one of the best advocates for the LMI community. He was all in. He was Mr. Community Action. He was a mentor, a funny guy with a lot of soul. And our community lost a giant when we lost John Holmlish. So to his family, to his wife, know that our hearts are with you. Thank you all for everything. So that being said, we do now have an executive session, and we will take a break before we go into that executive session. But if the city attorney could please do us the kindness of reading the parameters.
The motion is to recess into executive session for a period of time not to exceed 20 minutes to discuss upcoming employer-employee negotiations as justified by KSA 75-4319B3. In order to aid the discussion, the following individuals should be present: members of the governing body, City Manager Brent Trout, Administrative and Financial Services Director Jessica Lamondola, Human Resources Director Jackie Russell, Senior Assistant City Attorney Catherine Walter, Budget and Performance Manager Stephen Wade, and myself. No action is anticipated to be taken when the open meeting resumes in the governing body chambers.
We have heard the parameters of the executive session. What is the pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Nager, I think, made a motion.
Yeah, let's do it. I just didn't know the right verbiage.
Do we have a second? Councilman Emerson, at this point in time, if there's no comment, we proceed with the vote.
Council members Padilla,
No.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council members Heller,
Did I mute too soon? Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
No.
and
Emerson, yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
All right, before we recess into the executive session, we will allow for those who are in the room that should not be here to exit. And also we will allow for the council to have a 5-minute break. My clock reads that it's 9:18. So therefore we expect to start the executive session right around, now it's 19. So let's round it up to 9:25. So we will be back in a few minutes. Thank you. We have not concluded the executive session. We are finding ourselves in need to go back to a period not to exceed 10 minutes under the same parameters read earlier. If there is a motion for us to extend.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilwoman Nager. At this point in time, if there's no other questions with regards to our extension, we proceed with the vote. And we'll do, I'll do a vote by roll call. Actually, anybody not in, everybody in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. There's only Councilman Dobler, for the sake of minutes, that has said no. That being the case, the motion carries 9-1. We are going to recess 2. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Ortiz also was a no. 8-2. And we will now enter into that executive session under the same parameters, not to exceed 10 minutes. All right, the executive session has concluded. No action has been taken. There is no further items on the agenda, therefore the meeting is adjourned. Still 9:59, Spencer. Bye, guys.